Top 10 new enhancements in the past 3 years. So I want to go through any of the things that you guys might have missed that I think are probably the most impactful from the last couple of releases. So just a little bit about myself. I'm the Technical Solutions Manager here at TPM. I've been using SOLIDWORKS for a long time. I use it almost every day, right? I use SOLIDWORKS almost every day, just professionally and as a hobby with my robotics programs. So I'd like to discuss which enhancements have made the greatest impact, not only on my customers, but myself just using the software. So let's begin the countdown. In the number 10 spot, I have the mesh and B-rep support. So complex shapes are widespread in today's world and are often produced using industrial design tools or carved to make physical models, but they need to be manufactured. A common workflow to complete the engineering process is to leverage these designs from mesh or scan data. So this tool got introduced in 2019 and it's gone through several enhancements even up into today's release of 2022. And it's just an additional tool for handling complex scan data or STL models, and it's a must-have, in my opinion, for users who are 3D printing complex shapes. You can even place real textures on a surface using an image, which makes for some very impressive geometry without a lot of design effort. In some cases, this is the only way to create a feature, and this is why this feature made the list. And so I'm sure you guys, if you've missed that, you would want to see that. So we're going to actually go here and I'll play a quick video so that you guys can see this in action.
The need to directly edit mesh geometry, like this STL file, is becoming more common. SOLIDWORKS 2020 continues to expand on its already rich mesh editing feature set. Filleting edges is now possible using the same workflow as a native SOLIDWORKS file. You can even change the fillet to a chamfer and vice versa. SOLIDWORKS 2020 now supports more advanced editing tools, which will make it easy to increase the radius of this surface. We'll start by offsetting the mesh surface and extending the result. SOLIDWORKS 2020 now supports mutual trim operations as well as knit surfaces, making this change a breeze. It's not uncommon for STL files to be damaged. Running a quick geometry check shows that there's an open surface. With SOLIDWORKS 2020, you can now delete these holes by right-clicking and choosing Delete Hole from the context menu, or by simply selecting the edge and pressing Delete. SOLIDWORKS 2019 introduced Delete Face. SOLIDWORKS 2020 expands the capability to support delete and fill, which makes removing these features on the part a trivial operation. SOLIDWORKS 2020 gives you powerful tools that make editing mesh geometry familiar and easy.
Alrighty, so that was the number 10 feature that I picked. Going into number 9, I think this one is pretty powerful as well. And it's one that many users are not really familiar with up to this point. So let's talk about this a little bit. We've always had external references and we've always had envelopes. So what's kind of special about this one? When you're working on really complex assemblies with multiple subsystems, it can be challenging when you are trying to reference between subassemblies or when you're referencing a subassembly from the top level down. So the envelope publisher actually allows you to do that while maintaining external references, and it won't break your assembly, and it allows you to work with other users on an assembly without actually creating a bunch of external references that prohibit you from doing so. So I'm actually going to show a couple of clips on this one as well, because I think this is what makes it really simple to work collaboratively in large assemblies, and you can be assured that your assembly is going to work together fairly well with those users if you guys are both using SOLIDWORKS at the same time on the same assembly and you're doing different aspects of the subassembly design.
Working on complex assemblies like the OMAX Micromax water jet with multiple systems and designers can be a challenge, especially when work needs to reference other subassemblies. Previous workflows would either have work done at the top-level assembly or by creating duplicate parts in sub-assemblies. These added significant time and could be difficult to manage. Envelopes have long been a great tool for making reference components that do not affect calculations or bills of materials. With the new Envelope Publisher in SOLIDWORKS 2020, envelopes are no longer limited to components in the same assembly. Now we can simply select the components needed for reference and a destination assembly. Once the envelope is created, we can open the same destination assembly to complete the task. Now it is easy to finish all the plumbing design work in one place. We can add reference geometry or mate directly to the envelope components, ensuring the design will fit in the top-level assembly. Envelope Publisher makes it simple to work collaboratively in large assemblies and be assured design work will fit together seamlessly.
All right, so to turn this one on, to actually be able to see this one, you are going to want to go into your system options, and under external references, you'll see a box down here that will allow the creation of references external to the model. But in addition to that, you will see the options for envelope down here as well. So that is how you turn that one on to use it. It is not on by default. Number 8, the structure system. The structure system tool, introduced in 2019, has gone through multiple enhancements every year since release. 2020, 21, and even 2022 make this a very compelling method for creating weldment structures instead of the standard weldment method. Using structure system, which will be showcased during the rollout later today as well, you can even make complicated weldments using axes, planes, reference geometries, and sketches that will make this a much more powerful method of controlling tube frame structures. This is one you do not want to miss if you make any metal structures.
Structure System was introduced in SOLIDWORKS 2019 and provides a more flexible method to create welded structures with or without the use of complex 3D sketches to define all members. Let's review some of the capabilities of Structure System and take a look at several of the enhancements for SOLIDWORKS 2020. In this example, the weldment will be defined with just a couple of sketches, an axis, and 4 planes. Primary members can be created in a variety of ways, but now in SOLIDWORKS 2020, the point and length member definition has new options. Members can now be created between pairs of sketch points or chained together to create a series of members along a chain of points. The new up to point option allows you to create members that all converge at a single reference point, and the new up to plane option creates members that terminate at a selected plane. The member extrudes in the direction of the reference plane, or you can choose a sketch segment as a direction to define the members. As introduced in SOLIDWORKS 2019, secondary members can be added using support planes, and for these, a different weldment profile will be used. The top of these members need to align with the selected planes, and to accomplish this, an alternate pierce point can be selected. Another secondary cross member can be added using the between points method, and we'll define this member to go between the corners. In SOLIDWORKS 2020, primary and secondary members can now be split during creation. Splitting can be done using dimensions, instance count, or by selecting a reference such as a face, plane, or structural member, and for this member we'll rotate the profile by 90 degrees. When you're finished defining the structure system, the corner management tool kicks in and allows you to define the corner trims. For the simple corners, we'll define a planar trim with full contact to the intersecting member. For the complex corners, SOLIDWORKS does a fantastic job of determining the trim tool as well as the trim order for the intersecting members. Hiding the vertical member, you can see what a great job SOLIDWORKS did on the corner management. To create the circular structure that was shown in the beginning of this demonstration, we need to pattern the structure system. Previously, bodies could be patterned to achieve this, But now in SOLIDWORKS 2020, you can create linear and circular patterns or mirror the entire structure system. By patterning the structure system, you're maintaining the intelligence of each of the members, and additional structure systems can be added, referencing the patterned members. This was not possible when patterning bodies. In this example, we will add a new structure system to define the perimeter members. These are added using the support plane method between the original structure system and the patterned members, and the pierce point will be defined to align to the planes. Upon exit of this structure system, the corner management tool determines the corners between the new members in the first structure system and its patterned members, and determines the proper trim tool member and trim order. This perimeter structure system can also be patterned to complete the design. The structure system feature, introduced in SOLIDWORKS 2019 and enhanced in 2020, provides an advanced weldment environment that lets you create and modify structural members of different profiles in a single feature with flexible corner management and trimming.
I'm going to pause really quick, make sure that everyone is hearing the audio from these clips. I had one or two people actually say that they cannot hear audio from the clips that are playing. Is that true for everyone or just a couple of folks? Okay,
Sounded good on my end,
saying the
Robbie.
audio is good. Okay, thank you, Rob. Just checking. So might have to play with the settings. You can click that orange arrow to see that, and then under audio, make sure that you're playing through your headphones if you're using headphones. Okay, we're going to keep going. Number 7, touch mode. Simply put, using SOLIDWORKS on almost any device is a dream coming to realization with the enablement of touch mode. Whether using a stylus or your finger, touch mode has been enabled for users to work on Surface PCs, smartboards, and tablets. As more and more of our devices connect to the cloud, the demand for less hardware, such as a mouse and keyboard, is driving the direction for a simpler and easier method to access the tools we know and love.
SOLIDWORKS 2019 delivers a wealth of innovative new productivity enhancements that let you take advantage of the latest cutting-edge hardware technology. Now when working on any Windows touch-enabled device, you can use a Microsoft Surface dial to pan, zoom, and rotate your model. Place the dial directly on the screen, then press and hold, and the tools appear graphically at your fingertips directly on the digital table. The dial keeps you completely in touch with your design by providing an exciting and immersive way of interacting with SOLIDWORKS using touch mode. Whether you design complex shapes or simple mechanical parts, SOLIDWORKS gesture sketching provides an innovative approach to capturing rapid-fire design ideas. Now in SOLIDWORKS 2019, your hand-sketched shapes can be automatically converted into splines. The resulting shape can be modified just like any other, making it even easier to achieve any shape you desire. Not just a tool for the industrial designer, gesture sketching provides a quick and easy way to create prismatic designs. In addition to lines, arcs, and circles, hand-drawn slot shapes are now recognized and converted into slot sketch entities, enabling you to utilize this exciting new approach to model creation regardless of the geometry. SOLIDWORKS 2019 introduces a truly unique approach to capturing design intent. Dimensions can now be created in an instant by writing directly on screen. Select or sketch an entity, then write the value, and SOLIDWORKS will detect and interpret your handwriting and convert it into a fully associative driving dimension. Adding sketch dimensions is now quicker and easier than ever. Finally, SOLIDWORKS provides an intuitive touch-optimized environment that supports typical everyday design workflows. Using touch interaction, you can quickly and easily assemble parts together using SmartMates. Simply tap the desired face of each part on screen, and the components automatically snap into position. As you work, SOLIDWORKS interprets your touch inputs and gestures intuitively switching model behavior based on your selection. SOLIDWORKS 2019 offers a wealth of innovative new capabilities for capturing rapid-fire design ideas, whether you're in the office or on the go.
All right. So number 7, touch mode. Pretty exciting things. This next one, number 6, I think this is probably one of the more powerful ones for me, the Quick Mates toolbar. And this one was introduced in 2014, but quite honestly, I think the introduction of all of the mates on the Quick Mates toolbar has really saved me a lot of time. That coupled with the D key, because when you click on a model, you click the D key, you get breadcrumbs from the top of your screen here to your mouse, and it allows you to sort through and pick on planes and axes and things that are referencing those geometries. So it's really easy for me to click on one of these parts, click the center plane, click on another part, use the D key again, grab that center plane, and use the Quick Mates toolbar in conjunction with all of those shortcuts to mate faster than ever.
The Quick Mates toolbar, introduced in SOLIDWORKS 2014, provides a means to rapidly assemble components directly from the graphics area. SOLIDWORKS 2020 extends this popular tool by adding additional commonly used mates. When mating the washer to the slot, the Quick Mates toolbar now includes the slot mate and provides options for choosing its constraint. For this case, we'll center it in the slot. The screw needs to be mated to the washer, and we have long had the ability to do this with the Profile Center mate from the Quick Mates toolbar. But there was no way to flip the mate alignment without editing the mate after creating it. Now in SOLIDWORKS 2020, a new Flip Alignment button pops up, allowing you to flip the mate on creation. Just as with the slot mate, the constraint options are available for the width mate to establish its position. Previously, there was no way to flip the alignment of a width mate. Users had to suppress the mate, rotate the part, and then unsuppress the mate. The new Flip Alignment button pops up, allowing alignment changes on the fly. In addition, when editing a width mate, the option to flip mate alignment is now available on the right mouse menu as well as in the Property Manager. Limit mates have also been added to the Quick Mates toolbar. Both the limit distance and limit angle mates are now available to quickly position components in the assembly. The angle, maximum, and minimum values can be entered immediately to keep your focus directly on the screen. With the new mate types available on the ever-popular Quick Mates toolbar, SOLIDWORKS 2020 continues to provide users with tools to rapidly assemble components.
All right, that's one of my personal favorites. That's something I use every single day when I am modeling inside of SOLIDWORKS. It doesn't get much better than that one. Keeping all of my focus directly in the middle of the screen, keeping my speed up. I almost never go into the mate menu manually anymore. Now, this one is an interesting one because it makes the list, in my opinion. So we all do this, right? We all goof. Quick, undo it, go back, right? But if you undo so far in the older versions of SOLIDWORKS, there is no redo option. If you are working on a feature and you undo past the feature in the tree, you don't get to redo and get that feature back. So you had to be pretty careful. Up until SOLIDWORKS 2021, that was true. Now you can undo and redo up to 60 features. And this is something that I honestly have taken for granted because my robotics projects, some of them are still running SOLIDWORKS 2020. And then I realized how badly I missed the ability to just undo and redo just without even thinking about it. Because when I go from 2021 or 2022 back down to 2020, and then I don't have that, I feel it immediately. this is when I kind of realized how badly I miss it and how badly I actually relied on it. So this one may not seem like a big deal, but I assure you, it feels like if you go to use it and you don't have it, you're gonna feel it. So don't have a video for this one because this one is just fairly simple, but that's a big one for myself. Number 4. This is a much larger topic than I actually have room to cover on an intro video like this, but the large design review, or LDR, and the removal of large assembly mode. Assembly performance, right? It's easily one of the most important aspects of why users come to SOLIDWORKS as their go-to tool. With the exit of 32-bit operating systems, SOLIDWORKS can now use the LDR, or large design review mode, which is designed to work with 32-bit operating systems with a lot more freedom. Now that we don't have that limitation of that RAM that we were limited to using, we can use more RAM. Our computers are more powerful than they've ever been before. And since we're still only that single core, we can still use the more powerful processors that are out, and we can actually kind of remove the throttle limiter on LDR mode. So with the 2020 version, you'll notice that the large assembly mode, which is also kind of part of what we use for our large assembly settings, it's replaced with a button that just says large assembly settings. So you may notice that as you migrate from 19 to 20 to 21, that the performance changes drastically with each version in the form of it's better, and you're going to find that 2022 adds even more on top of this, and Rob's going to talk about that a little bit more today. So we're going to go ahead and play this clip so you guys can take a deeper look at this.
You demand the best performing tools so you can work as efficiently as possible. SOLIDWORKS 2021 delivers multiple new enhancements to access your data faster and work more efficiently. Open times for both resolved and lightweight assemblies have been improved in SOLIDWORKS 2021. This 2259 component assembly opens in only 21 seconds, making getting into your designs faster than ever. The larger the assembly, the greater the gains you will see while opening them in lightweight mode. To improve working with lightweight components, there is now also a more streamlined approach to accessing their assembly and feature information. Simply expanding a component from the Feature Manager tree will now dynamically load those components on demand, giving you access to the fully resolved subassembly or part. This prevents unnecessary loading of large assemblies, but also allows you to quickly access and resolve the components you're working on as needed. Working with configurations in SOLIDWORKS 2021 is now also faster. Both switching between and creating new configurations are now significantly faster for assemblies. The performance evaluation tool within SOLIDWORKS has always been an invaluable resource to give insight into areas of a design that may cause performance degradation. New for SOLIDWORKS 2021 is the analysis and reporting of circular references within an assembly. In this case, two holes on two separate parts have been found to reference one another. You can use this information to further investigate the design and determine how they're referencing one another to fix these issues. In this scenario, one of the components listed in the report contains a hole wizard feature, where its location sketch has center points that are referencing the edges of a hole in the adjacent part to locate them concentrically. This is a common top-down design practice to ensure that holes always remain aligned to one another. However, investigation of the second component's feature, also a hole wizard, it appears that the center points within this sketch are likewise referencing the edges of the previously interrogated holes. This creates a circumstance where both features are trying to define the location of each other or a circular reference. To fix this scenario, the best course of action would be to remove the external references and redefine the location of the hole centers in one of the sketches, in this case dimensionally to the part they reside within. Once the changes have been made, a quick rebuild removes any warnings from the assembly. Finally, you can use Silhouette D feature, introduced in SOLIDWORKS 2019, on an assembly to create a simplified representation of it, or to protect proprietary information. Silhouette D feature provides an intuitive step-by-step workflow to define this simplified version using a variety of geometry simplification tools. While you are selecting the components, bodies, or subassemblies you want to simplify, you will always have a side-by-side view to show what your finished representation will look like. This ensures that you can capture the correct amount of detail. The methods you can use to simplify your geometry range from something as simple as a bounding box or cylindrical representation of the components, or something a little more complex, like the polygon or tight fit methods, which add a little bit more detail to the final results. Perhaps some of the components in your subassembly are critical to show in a top-level design, even within a simplified representation. For those instances, you can choose the copy geometry method to capture all of the detail of those components, bodies, or subassemblies. What's new for Silhouette D feature in SOLIDWORKS 2021 is the ability to save this simplified representation as a configuration within the same assembly from which it was created. This eliminates the need to manage a separate file that contains the simplified model. You may still want to use those other methods when using Silhouette D feature to remove proprietary information from a design to share outside of your organization as a separate disconnected file. However, when using D-featured models within higher level assemblies, it is now as simple as right-clicking on the component and choosing to use the D-featured version. D-featured assemblies as configurations provide a way to both simplify complex assemblies visually and also add a performance boost in cases where the detail of the individual components isn't necessary. With these new performance-oriented features in SOLIDWORKS 2021, you will be able to work faster and more efficiently with larger and more complex designs.
All right, so there's a lot to unpack with that video. The one thing that I didn't even really notice almost until I started using that version of SOLIDWORKS was if I was in lightweight mode and I clicked one of the parts, it jumped out of lightweight mode and it was so fast in most of my assemblies, I didn't even notice that it was happening. So huge performance gains in everything from 2020 and forward. Last few releases, this is getting faster and faster as we unpack more, and it will continue with 2022. Now, this one, number 3, the performance pipeline. The performance pipeline or enhanced graphics option was introduced in beta mode in 2019, and then it was cast as a default option in 2020 and beyond. This one happens mostly under the hood, but this allows SOLIDWORKS to scale relative to the power of your graphics card and represents a noticeable performance boost to anyone who uses it. Let's take a look, and then I'll tell you guys how to turn this one on.
When working with large assemblies, view manipulation is vital to a good user experience. And over the years, SOLIDWORKS worked hard to optimize view manipulations on the screen. For instance, large assembly mode will disable model edges, shadows, real view, and more. The level of detail is set to fast, which removes small components during view changes. These optimizations make view manipulation fast, but comes at the expense of visual appeal. When better visual quality is desired, large assembly mode can be disabled, but graphics performance is sacrificed. SOLIDWORKS 2019 changes the game. View manipulations are lightning fast, even with large assembly mode turned off. In a side-by-side comparison, you can clearly see the improvement. Dynamic view operations such as zoom, pan, and rotate are dramatically faster. Users see less dropped frames or that chunkiness when rotating large models. More of the graphics calculations are now done on the graphics card, providing much better performance. In fact, SOLIDWORKS now scales with graphics card hardware, allowing users to further accelerate dynamic performance with higher-end graphics cards. The new graphics performance boost in SOLIDWORKS 2019 provides a better user experience when working with large assemblies.
So I actually played around quite a lot with this feature. The way to access it is you have to go into your system options, and then under your performance, you can find that enable enhanced graphics option. But it is pretty much on by default when you install 2021 and 2022. So you won't have to do anything. For users who are using 2020, it still isn't typically checked on by default, but you can go in and check it on. You are going to want to make sure that you do have a supported graphics card to use this. As long as you have a supported graphics card, this works great, especially on NVIDIA cards. I don't recall if it actually works for any of the AMD Fire Pros yet, but they are working on something very similar. So if you have an NVIDIA card, you're automatically just getting a performance increase by installing one of these newer versions of SOLIDWORKS. Number 2, detailing mode. So this is a heavy hitter. Performance is always a major focus for the SOLIDWORKS development team. So with detailing mode, in 2020 and beyond, you can now open massive drawings in seconds, regardless of their size and complexity. I like to think of this as LDR for drawings, but you can actually work on the drawing. This feature alone commands a high spot on the list because it's one of the top features, and we keep adding on to it. We keep being able to edit more and more inside of detailing mode, and in 2022, it gets even more powerful. So let's take a quick look at detailing mode.
Performance is always a major focus for the SOLIDWORKS development team, and this year is no different. With detailing mode in SOLIDWORKS 2020, you can now open massive drawings in seconds, regardless of their size and complexity. The model does not get loaded, but the drawing views are intact, so there's no loss of detail. Detailing mode is perfect for quickly opening drawings for minor edits or design reviews. Individual sheets load in an instant, and the drawing can also be printed. But it doesn't stop there. Some editing capabilities are available as well, such as making changes to annotations or dimensions. Notes can be added to the drawing or dragged from a library of company notes, and annotations added in detailing mode can also be edited. In this case, we can add line numbers and formatting to the note. This drawing sheet is a bit crowded, and as with a resolved drawing, drawing views can be moved and arranged on the drawing. Dimensions can also be positioned to achieve the desired layout. Views can also be cut, copied, and pasted. And to better organize this drawing, we'll add a new sheet, reposition the tab, paste the view onto this sheet, and do some dimension cleanup. Balloons can be added or repositioned, and take advantage of magnetic lines for a clean look. If additional dimensioning is required, this can be done in detailing mode as well. Dimensions can be added to edges and vertices, using the same techniques you're familiar with in resolved drawings. In this case, we'll add some dimensions to locate the positioning holes for the gantry system. We'll also define the hole size, and you can see that the dimension palette is available to fine-tune your dimension with notes and tolerances, or the dimension property manager can be used for more refinement. Any command that is not grayed out on the command manager is available in detailing mode, such as the format painter. Here we'll leverage an existing dimension and paint its format to our new dimensions and arrange our dimensions for better clarity. Revision tables, symbols, and clouds can also be added to communicate any changes. And when you're done with your edits, the drawing can be saved and rest assured that these edits will be there regardless of which mode the drawing is opened with next. To communicate with external collaborators, you can print the drawing, or you can save the drawing in a variety of formats such as DWG, JPEG, or even PDF. With Detailing Mode in SOLIDWORKS 2020, productivity is enhanced by allowing users to open in seconds drawings containing large assemblies, lots of sheets, many configurations, or resource-intensive views.
So this one definitely makes one of the top features on the list. How often do you want to just open a drawing? I just want to look, right? I just want to look at the drawing. I don't want to modify the drawing. I don't want to do anything with it. I just want to open it quickly and look. I practically always use detailing mode when I'm opening my drawings. And then if I need more detail, I can jump down into lightweight or resolved for some of those larger drawings. And then the last one on the list, the 3D Experience platform. Bar none, the number one heaviest hitting feature of the last few releases, connecting to the cloud and everything that comes with it. The future of CAD as we know it centers around connectivity to a cloud environment. Whether you're connecting your current seat of SOLIDWORKS desktop to the cloud with SOLIDWORKS Connector, or you're embracing the cloud-connected 3D Experience SOLIDWORKS, the future of CAD data and working in the cloud is here. The 3D Experience platform is a collection of roles and applications that allow users to fully collaborate on the cloud, centered around everyday tools like CAD, data management, project management, simulation, CAM, ERP, MRP, in an environment that fully connects every aspect of your business in one single source of truth. There isn't a single feature that can compete with this one in the last few releases because the SOLIDWORKS community is the center of the platform.
The traditional definition of the workplace is changing. Design teams need to collaborate over great distances and have the flexibility to get work done on the go. Choosing the right CAD tool is paramount. But what about the design data? How can it be stored securely but still provide convenient access at any time, anywhere? 3D Experience SOLIDWORKS offers industry-leading SOLIDWORKS desktop CAD, as well as powerful browser-based CAD solutions, all built from the ground up with secure and convenient cloud data management at its core. SOLIDWORKS Desktop provides dedicated tools and workflows that streamline the design and development of your products from concepts through to reality. Great designs typically start with a sketch. SOLIDWORKS makes this simple and straightforward. Even the most complex ideas are easy to realize with access to instant feedback and standard tools like the Hole Wizard, an extensive library of hole types built right in. SOLIDWORKS enables you to not only modify design dimensions, but also reuse geometry with a simple drag and drop, a great time saver. Because SOLIDWORKS is connected directly to the 3D Experience platform, you can easily find the components you need with a simple search. Components can be snapped together with ease, no clunky menus or confusing windows to navigate. SOLIDWORKS understands the mechanical relationship between components and can generate lifelike motion in even the most complex assemblies. Understanding the performance of your designs early in the design process is crucial to a successful product launch. SOLIDWORKS provides powerful tools that help you get to market ahead of time and with maximum quality. Documenting your designs is quick and easy. Simply start with a standard drawing sheet and snap 2D views into place. Projection views are created automatically, and section views are just a click away. Save time by importing dimensions straight from the 3D model, or create special dimensions and callouts with intuitive tools. Drawings in SOLIDWORKS are always up to date and contain accurate detail, like automatic bill of materials and item balloons, to make understanding the design easy for manufacturing and suppliers. With 3D Experience SOLIDWORKS, your design data is saved to the secure cloud, making it immediately available to your team and other stakeholders. Your data will always be safely backed up and controlled using maturity workflows and revision management, all without the need to purchase, install, or maintain expensive servers on premises. With 3D Experience SOLIDWORKS, you're no longer tethered to the office, as it includes powerful 3D CAD in a web browser. build complex 3D parts and assemblies using an intuitive design interface. The 3D Experience platform natively understands your CAD data, so you can reference it while creating messages to your team or while creating intelligent tasks to drive daily work. This streamlines your design process now that contributors don't have to spend time searching for the right documents. They can move forward with certainty, knowing that they're working on the correct document every time. The tight integration between the browser-based CAD tools and the powerful desktop tools allows files to be used interchangeably. Designing is no longer a function of how powerful your computer is, it's a function of where inspiration strikes. Customers demand great-looking products. Take advantage of subdivision modeling in the browser with 3D Experience SOLIDWORKS to create complex shapes that would be difficult to design using traditional 3D CAD methods. Just push and pull in the virtual clay environment to instantly see your product take shape. Also available with 3D Experience SOLIDWORKS is the ability to create high-quality, photorealistic renderings of your products using SOLIDWORKS Visualize. Creating renderings is easy. Drag and drop materials, colors, textures, and environments. Then, use the lightning-fast rendering engine with denoiser AI technology built in to effortlessly create eye-popping images or animations. As your business grows, the 3D Experience platform grows with you. Validate your design decisions using Simulia. Take your project management to the next level with integrated project planning tools. Access powerful CAM functionality with Delmia, and so much more. The traditional definition of the workplace is changing, but that doesn't mean that progress comes to a halt. All of these powerful tools make it easy to go from concept to design to manufacture and beyond, no matter where your team members are located.
So, SOLIDWORKS 2022 just around the corner. We're going to feature many new enhancements to help you work smarter, faster, and together. We have focused on quality and robustness so your tools are more reliable than ever. And of course, many new features you won't want to live without. Each year, you face new challenges, you rediscover the old ways of working are just not good enough, and at SOLIDWORKS we agree. Each release, we make the significant strides to improve the tools you trust. We're also transforming our ecosystem with our 3D Experience Works portfolio. You take what you already know and love with SOLIDWORKS and supercharge it with all the Dassault Systèmes' best technology. You work smarter, you work faster, and you work together. Let's take a look at our data set for this year. So, kicking off today, thank you for coming again to the Technical Showcase. My name is Robbie Hoyler, and I am your host for this exciting session of What's New in 2022. I'm going to be joined later by Rob Stocklosa for a deeper dive. And we already got to take a look at some of the top 10 enhancements of the past 3 years, but let's focus on the best of them from this release. So, what a great data set for this year. The Nemo is going to be featured throughout this presentation on SOLIDWORKS and the 3D Experience Works content. But before we begin and get a little bit deeper into that, we're going to have a quick overview from John Paulo.
Hello SOLIDWORKS community. SOLIDWORKS 2022 is just around the corner. It features many enhancements to help you work smarter, work faster, and work together. We have focused on quality and robustness, so your tools are more reliable than ever. And of course, many new features you won't want to live without. Each year, you face new challenges. You rediscover the old ways of working are just not good enough. At SolidWorks, we agree. Each release, we make significant strides to improve the tools you trust. We also are transforming our ecosystem with our 3D Experience Works portfolio. You take what you already know and love with SolidWorks and supercharge it with all of the System-based technology. So you work smarter, work faster, work together. This year we feature a long-time customer in the Netherlands, U-Boat Works. This fall, they are launching their Nemo submarine. It is one of the most sophisticated pieces of underwater tech available to consumers. It's an award-winning, revolutionary design and personalized for individual use. We are so proud to be part of their innovation, as well as your next great project. For now, sit back and take in everything new in SolidWorks 2022 and the 3D Experience Works.
All right, so let's take a look at this. We're going to kick things off with an on-the-surface look, and we'll have three unique agenda parts to this entire rollout. The first two, on the surface and deeper dive, are going to be today. The deepest capabilities with the 3D Experience Works are going to be tomorrow. We tried to break this up so that we didn't have 3 hours straight of content. So we're going to kick off with the on the surface, and I'm going to go through that. This is a high-level overview of the best features from this release, what you can expect. Then a deeper dive with Rob Stocklosa during this session. This is going to be the more intimate picks and clicks of the what's new and all of the features and how they work. And then tomorrow we'll finish up the deepest capabilities with 3D Experience Works session, Data Management Simulia. For the first part, on the surface, let's work smarter, work faster, work together. First, let's look at working smarter. Working smarter, did you know that SOLIDWORKS is pretty much the only software that can open up other CAD formats like Inventor and Creo? Well, it can, and it has been able to do that since about 2017. And we can also open up mesh bodies and other types of formats. So since 3D Interconnect came out in around 2017, we've been able to pull these in and use these files, and we can put features on top of those bodies. 2022 makes this even more powerful by adding hybrid modeling, where you can mix SOLIDWORKS features with other body types, such as a mesh body even. Rob is going to cover most of the details in the deep dive session coming up. Ever find yourself modifying configurations using only the configure feature menu when you right click on the assembly, right click on it, hit configure feature, and then you'd have to collect that bottom button there to pull all of the features you've configured? That used to be one of the only ways to consistently keep track of anything you've modified in an assembly. But in 2022, the new configuration table allows you to streamline and keep track of configurations as you create them on the fly in one spot without all of those picks and clicks. Patterns continue to get more intelligent, saving steps and making more predictable models. What more could you ask for? Even the GD&T menu is much improved, building datums and information faster than ever. All of these steps to make you work smarter. Rounding out our Work Smarter session, the new Stud Wizard allows for the creation of external threads with cosmetic graphics to pair nicely with the thread feature created a few releases back to simplify geometry and even create callouts, even if you have cutbacks. Now that we are working smarter, let's work faster. Everyone by now should be using the S key. If you've not been using the S key, You should. The S key is not new. The S key, or the shortcut key, is the most powerful user tool on the keyboard. The S key is fully customizable, and in 2022, it moves the search from the top right of the screen directly into the S key context bar where your mouse is. The S key functionality allows you to simply type the name of the command, and if you hit the I to search for it, it'll locate it on the command bar, or you can hit enter to launch the command. This is easily the most powerful shortcut in SOLIDWORKS. It almost always has been, but it's been adapted even farther for 2022. Detailing mode was added in 2020, and has quickly become one of the most powerful ways to open drawings. For 2022, you can now jump from LDR, or Large Design Review Assembly, to the drawing in detail mode without resolving any components. This is easily the fastest drawings have ever been opened, even if the drawings are very large and complex. This is probably one of the most powerful enhancements of note in the last several releases. And get this, you can now open any drawing, no matter the version, in detailing mode. In the last release, LDR, or Large Design Review, was enhanced, and now we can keep up that momentum in 2022 by allowing users to navigate down into subassemblies in LDR or lightweight mode, drastically increasing navigation speeds when working in assembly environments where you don't want to open a complex subassembly from the top level and do not wish to navigate using the open menu to access those options. This represents a significant time saver in the picks and clicks and file searching that you would otherwise have to do without this feature. One of my personal favorites. Quick mates have been around for a while. So have smart mates. When you use the Alt key and you drag a component, but users that activated those shortcuts would often learn to twist and rotate a part approximately where they needed it to be before mating it, so they could avoid needing to flip or otherwise change a mate if the shortcut placed it improperly. Now, with the new Quick Mates toolbar, you can position the part on the screen using commands prior to creating the mate, thus increasing mating speed using the same shortcuts you're already familiar with and decreasing the need to move or pre-position a component around prior to using the now faster shortcuts. Expanding even further upon detailing mode, we can now open drawings again from any version of SOLIDWORKS, making this a well-rounded everyday tool. Again, if you just want to open up a drawing and take a look, this hides all of the features and things that you don't want to load, kind of like LDR for assemblies, right? Detailing mode is essentially LDR for just drawings. If you want to just open up a drawing, do some minor editing, detailing mode is the tool for you. We're working smarter. We're working faster. For the last section here, let's discuss how we work together in the SOLIDWORKS environment. Our first step into how we work together. This has been a feature in the making for some time, the new administrative image tool. This allows for deploying multiple different types of image, such as a remote user and a compressed admin image, which allows for pulling installation data from the website instead of on-premise data through VPN, and a compressed version, which reduces the overall file size for a user to speed up the creation of an installation image. The tool is much more streamlined for admins to deploy to remote users in a time where more and more users need to be remote. Starting with some content we will cover in depth tomorrow, you can complement your SOLIDWORKS tool with 3D Sculptor, a cloud-based subdivision or sub-D modeling solution that's part of 3D Experience Works. Create organic shapes and complex surfaces intuitively and quickly. And you can explore designs using this natural push-pull interaction and powerful underlying technology that keeps surface quality high. How do you store your SOLIDWORKS data, manage changes, and design concurrently? When you connect SOLIDWORKS to the 3D Experience platform, cloud data management is just a few clicks away. This is rapidly becoming the go-to tool for users without PDM and users who do not want IT overhead and wish to store their data on the cloud right from the SOLIDWORKS menu. Powered by Simulia, you have comprehensive abilities to simulate complex physics at a scale never before attainable. With structural, fluid flow, plastic injection, and electromagnetic simulations, you are empowered more than ever to design better products and exceed your goals. Power above and beyond even SOLIDWORKS simulation. The 3D Experience platform is the next level in simulation solution solving. Collaborate and accelerate your innovation by using and managing SOLIDWORKS Connected, built with out-of-the-box platform connectivity. Increase your competitive advantage by tapping into the power and breadth of the cloud-based 3D Experience Works portfolio. The 3D Experience SOLIDWORKS 2022X is coming out on the 23rd of November. SOLIDWORKS 2022 Desktop released yesterday, so that is free to go download now. So here we arrive at the end of our on the surface look, and now we're going to hand it over to Rob Stocklosa to go into our deeper dive, and we're going to walk through all of the best features from 2022 in depth and give you a first look at this new release. Rob, take it away.
All right. Well, thank you everybody for, again, taking the time today. I know everybody is busy, probably busier now than I've ever seen, but at the same time, I think we owe it to ourselves to take, days like this to really, yes, I guess in turn, this helps our companies and everything, but this also is kind of an investment in ourselves, right? This is our career path. This is what we've all chosen. And in technology, I try to keep this in front of my mind as well, as it's going to change. So we should expect that, right? We should expect to have to kind of stay up to date on the things coming out. And for me, I've been doing this for over 20 years now, with various CAD packages and quite a long time with SOLIDWORKS. This is a big year. There's a lot changing. A lot of new technology has kind of surfaced and arrived. Surfaced, pardon the pun with our PowerPoint there. But it's a different day and age, everybody. So today, I think that's kind of the premise, is to keep us, going with where we're at, but also to get our minds thinking about where we're heading, so we can start planning for that. We don't want any surprises. So for this particular session, we're going to take a look at a deep dive into the What's New 2022. As Robbie mentioned, he gave you a kind of a higher level overview. We're going to take you into the weeds, or the kelp, or whatever we're in here, and really show you, how these functions work, how they're going to benefit you, how they're used, and I'll try to draw some analogies between what we were doing before, or why this is better this time around, if you will. Quick introduction, I'm Rob Stocklosa. I'm a technical solutions consultant, and like I said, I've been kind of doing this for quite a while. I got extensive background in just about everything that's going on out there, other than NX. I've had time in about everything, and I'm one of the consultants that TPM offers for services. So just keep that in mind. All of our team comes with quite a depth of knowledge, and I think it's probably over 100 years of experience, I'm sure, as we, if we totaled it up. So please leverage us, all you guys out there. It's what we do. We see a lot, and in our week to week, ordeals, we're constantly being brought up new challenges that our companies are facing. So we have some good background on that. Please leverage us, and we'll get going here. Okay, so just to give you an idea of the agenda for today, we're going to start with that top chunk of information, and there's a lot in there. As we know, parts, assemblies, and drawings, right? That's pretty much the lion's share of what we do on a day-to-day basis. So as you can imagine, there's always so much data that SOLIDWORKS puts out in each release. And for me and Robbie and our team, the biggest challenge is kind of picking through that and deciding what will hit home the most with our clients. And we don't always hit the mark. We deliberate quite a bit, but we can rest assured that all of you are in those environments, right? Parts assemblies and drawings, you really can't get by without it. So I think that that should hit home with the majority of you. There are some ancillary things, that we'll try to talk about and get to, but at the same time, like I said, this is our deal, right? We owe it to ourselves to make time to learn this stuff. So please try to schedule some time upcoming weeks where you can follow up on what you're learning today and really get into it so that it's part of your workflow, right? That's the biggest challenge I have. So the first thing we're going to talk about here is the user experience. Now, we're going on 2022, right? So we've got quite a few years of input from the user base and our clients, and people like myself, as to what we wanted in the software. And this has been a list going for almost as old as time now with CAD. It started with AutoCAD, right? We were always saying, hey, we wish we had this button. I wish this interface changed and it was a little bit more fluent. SolidWorks is continuously adding to that. And I will tell you, this year they've tackled some pretty heavy issues that we brought to them. As you can imagine, things that were brought up way back in the day, they wanted to address it, but it takes time and resources. So it really just took time for this software to develop some of these ancillary things we requested, but we're there. They're addressing it. We have the backbone in place, and I think you'll find some of these, pretty beneficial to your daily routine. Robbie mentioned the S key. That's not new, right? That's been around forever. So if you're not using it, take a look at it. You should have either a mapped mouse button to it or something. But that's important. We've just kind of expanded on it. As Robbie mentioned, there's a search toolbar. So we're adding more to that S key. So if you're not using it, please try to include that, right? And if you are using it, look for the new information. Coordinate systems become more important as we move forward. I constantly am having conversations with our clients about how times have changed. When I started doing this, I would go on site to install, with DVDs. And now we're not doing quite so much of that, right? It's different. Now we're integrating to ERP systems. We're dealing with massive assemblies that are super complex, that have high-end renderings attached. It's a different time than it was. So our tool sets have to change, and coordinate systems is one of that, right? Handling these large assemblies that most of our clients are now getting into, coordinate systems are how things get done. That's how we build some of the biggest, coolest systems and machines on the planet. So we're enriching that, right? We understand that the path forward is complex, and in order to achieve some of that information and make it workable, coordinate systems are how we kind of attach data, right? XYZ locations, and we just expanded upon that. So if you're not using coordinate systems in your larger assemblies, you might be missing something. That might be something you want to reach out to us. How do you apply that, Rob? And we'd be glad to share how that kind of interacts with your large assemblies and streamlines that. Reference geometry shortcut, little thing, but man, what do we do so often, right? We're creating reference geometry as much as I'm creating a sketch. So it makes sense to have some kind of a quick shortcut, right, where I can get access to that. So just know now you have a Q key, and it's going to take you right into that reference geometry environment, so you can start getting those planes, axes, and points on your screen just a little bit more efficiently. System options, always changing, right? That's where we control the brains of SolidWorks and how our application interacts with us. So we've got some new tools to show you that kind of give you some insight as to what those options are going to do. If you make changes, I know a lot of us were worried about that. We're worried about unchecking something because we weren't sure what that would do. We've just added in some really nice feedback, so you have a better idea of what these tools do prior to clicking that check mark, if you will. Dismiss messages. So we've all seen this. That came out quite a while ago, where if I open something and I have referenced files, or do I want to rebuild, right? All these messages that we come across through our day-to-day routine with SolidWorks, Sometimes they're monotonous, right? Sometimes we know it's going to ask us to rebuild, and we know we don't want it to. And you've all seen that you can say, you know, there's a little check mark that says, don't show these messages again. That's what we're referring to. We do get the call in our support team quite often, though, that somebody accidentally clicked that and the message goes away, and we don't know how to get it back because they want to alert the users that their drawings aren't updated or whatever. So we get that call quite often. So just know, dismiss messages, what they've done is really taken all the messages in SOLIDWORKS and kind of just put it into a one-stop shopping so we could control all of that. Prior to 2022, it was a little bit scattered. So it's just a little bit easier to manage some of those dialogues that pop up. The notification and message bar style, that kind of ties into it. They just kind of redid that interface so it's all one-stop shopping. And then a pack and go progress bar. That's one, what took so long, if you ask me. We've all done pack and go, right, where we're taking all of our reference data and putting it into a zip file per se. But during that time, I know I experienced it. I had large assemblies and I wouldn't even know if the thing was working. I would be checking my task manager for, you know, is my processes running? Is my computer being utilized? I really didn't know the status of pack and go sometimes. And you know, when you get to those points, you're a little worried. Should I hit eject and cancel it, or should I let it roll and hope that it comes back? So now we have a progress bar that just will indicate that it's working, where it is along the lines of that, right? Are we halfway done, 3/4? But for me, just that feedback of the bar is going to be nice because now I know it's working. And like I said, especially when we're packing going over networks, you know, some assembly that's in your PDM, there's some lag time that happens there. And I know that myself and my users, we've often wondered, you know, what's it doing? So now we know that what it's doing, it has that progress bar. So that's going to help us substantially. This is just something to look for in those notification bars, notification information. So like I said, we've all seen at least a couple of these in our day-to-day activities through SOLIDWORKS. But all these messages that we've come to know and love, like I said, they're going to be all kind of rolled up. It's a nice interface now. And the other thing to look for here, guys, is over here by this graphics body area where we have importing. You'll see that little explanation, or it's an I for information. That little bubble is the new function we're referring to. So when you're wondering, you know, what does importing a surface body or a graphics body do? What does that do? Yes, you have your help menu, but this is kind of an on-screen, right? This tells you exactly how it's going to handle those B reps. Okay, so just like I said, a couple things to look for here, and we're going to go ahead and start looking at the first one, which will be user enhancements. SOLIDWORKS 2022 helps you be more productive with thoughtful user experience enhancements. The Nemo submersible isn't complete without all 4 thrusters in place. In SOLIDWORKS 2022, command search is integrated into the S key. You can even have SOLIDWORKS show you its location for future reference. The position and orientation of the thrusters has been precisely calculated, so mating to a coordinate system would be a good strategy. In SOLIDWORKS 2022, coordinate systems can be defined using specific numeric values, which makes the placement of the second thruster a snap. Origin visibility is currently turned off to reduce clutter on the screen. With SOLIDWORKS 2022, the new Q key keyboard shortcut allows you to quickly turn on the assembly or component reference geometry. Coordinate systems have visually and functionally changed as well. Their axes, planes, and even the point itself can be used to create sketches. These thrusters need to be mirrored. Commonly used tools like this conveniently add to the shortcut bar with one click, and the new Q key shortcut works even while creating features. Many other elements of this user interface have been overhauled to give you a more informative and visually appealing experience. These bubbles appear throughout the system options and give you more insight into the settings. Dismissed messages have always been easy to show up again, but were sometimes truncated. Now, Hovering over an item reveals the whole message, making it easy to determine if you'd like to show it again. Notification pop-ups like the reminder to save have been unified in a style and in appearance. When you need to collect a project and all reference components, there's no better tool than Pack and Go. In 2022, you now see a progress bar giving you indication as to how long the process will take, which is especially useful for larger assemblies. The most user-friendly 3D CAD software in the world is now even easier. Enjoy 2022, everyone. All right. So, like I said, I hopefully gave you some idea of what to look for on those user enhancements as you get back. And as I mentioned, for me, even when I was in manufacturing and I used to go to these types of events, I would be making notes just to make sure I went back and tried this stuff for myself, right? Just so it kind of ingrained in my head. But we're always after the user interface. It's always getting better. And I think that everybody would agree on this call that from a user interface standpoint, SolidWorks is untouchable. It's a very easy program to learn and understand and get better with, and get deeper into some of these tool sets. So hopefully you find that to be the case. I know I do. All right, the next thing we're going to talk about here, we start to get into parts. All right, now parts have it's been delineated into two subsets because it is intense. The first set of information deals with the hybrid modeling. So let's talk about that for a second. I mentioned to you, back in the day, we used to go on site with DVDs and install, and now here I am in 2022 talking to you about hybrid modeling. I don't know that we even knew what the heck that was back in 2004 or 5, right? It wasn't a term that really entered our community. So, but it had been in the 3D CAD community, and that's the other thing we all need to understand is we're not necessarily pioneering this, right? CATIA came way before us, and there's a whole generation of engineers and designers that also were asking for these functions. So that's really where hybrid modeling stems from. It comes from some of that previous generation of them trying to deal with all these software packages and getting a coherent 3D model at the assembly level. So hybrid modeling kind of gets into that. It allows us to utilize data from these other packages, BREPs and things that are not solid models that we traditionally use that are done in SolidWorks, but we need them in our assembly. So hybrid modeling, because most of us are in some kind of a supply chain, right? We're either getting data from somebody and building our part to it, or we're sending parts, right? Somewhere in there, we're probably interacting with data that's not native to either your company or SolidWorks or both. And those are the cases that hybrid modeling, really comes into play. So if that's you, right, if you're handling this data and you don't know what to do, this is a function you should be looking at. The second part of this is parts structure systems. And Robbie alluded to this in his preview, also in the top 10, right? Structure system came out several years ago in an effort to really address just that, right? When people are using beams or extruded types of aluminum for structural or framing members, yes, we had the weldment environment, but it didn't really handle the functions that structural people do, right, on a day-to-day. It really wasn't built for how they work. It was a weldment, which is very generic. So the structural systems environment really gives them some tools, that pertain to that particular set of functions you're looking for. So that did come out several years ago. We've expanded upon it in 2022 because I got to tell you, probably about 95% of our clients, anything you make does attach to a frame, right? I think all of you would agree that somewhere in your company, if we took a walk through your plant, we'd see some frame members. We see some square tubing and some welding. So, it's usually part of every system. And this is the tool that we use to help kind of build that up and get those really complex fisheye connections and everything that can take place in there. Okay, so let's just get into a little bit more into that hybrid information first, so you know what to look for in the demonstration. So like I said, hybrid modeling allows us to get in here and manage these mesh B-rep bodies, right? And historically in the past, as soon as I knew I was dealing with this, right, the beads of sweat would start pouring off my head. Holy cow, what am I going to do? But like Robbie showed you in that in his slide, these red handles, and I'll show you in the demonstration. You know, these are not native SOLIDWORKS files. These are things that were brought in from something else. They're in this case they're in a B-rep mesh format, and we needed to add some features to it. So we have the tools to be able to do that. So again, this is a conversation we have quite often with companies, especially in 2021. How do I handle this other data, Rob? You know, how do I handle these dumb solids or this surface body or whatever you're getting? That's why you're seeing these tool sets, guys. It's very common. Everyone's in it to win it, if you will, if you know what I mean. So please take a look at these and reach out to us if this is a problem that you're facing. Whole wizard slots can be identified now with a tab key and kind of attaches to the arc center. So that's more easily shown than described. So I'll take you through what that looks like. Bidirectional draft when using a parting line. We did have some issues with that. I know at first I was like, well, couldn't we do bidirectional? But once you see the function, you'll see that there is some differences and there's a lot more control for how we can go about that. Pack and go references. This was a big one. For me, I deal with quite a bit of you with your PDM and your data management solutions. We're constantly trying to reuse data, right, in an effort to just shave off some time. And Pack and Go is a great tool. Copy Tree is a great tool, but Pack and Go is a great tool as well. Pack and Go in the past, we had some issues with split parts and saved bodies. So if you're familiar with that, with what that is, when we're doing multi-body design, where it's easier to just kind of build the part as one item and then split them off into separate components, as a weldment is. We had issues with splitting parts and saving these bodies. Sometimes it just wasn't grabbing these things, and particularly when I would go into PDM, I would often lose those references. So you can imagine when doing a similar but different design using Pack and Go, if you're missing some references, then it created some hassles. So that's what we're referring to here, is simply the capability now to understand that we did a split part in that command and we did save those bodies out, and here's where they're at. And when I do the Pack and Go, please understand that those are referenced. But we do have that function now and it's built into it. So that will help us quite a bit. A section plane on axis. This is pretty cool. I don't know how often I'm going to go remember this, but it's really neat to just grab a line or an axis. It's a section right here. There's some other inputs, but it is very quick, as opposed to having to define a plane or look for something that you have. Usually you have an edge, or you can create an axis pretty quick. So I'm going to try to incorporate that moving forward myself. The stud wizard is another one. Kind of what took so long, right? We all build these types of features, right? We're all studs and tapped type of bolts like that. They hold a lot of our parts together. So this was a big one for a lot of our user base. The stud wizard is basically like the whole wizard, right? We now don't have to go through and define that entire stud and the shoulder lengths and everything that takes place on it. It's built into a nice wizard. And you'll see that in the demonstration that, basically drawing a cylinder these days can get you a pretty fancy stud that's really detailed the way you want it. And then the last one for this one here is the configuration properties. And again, Robbie had alluded to this in one of his slides. You're going to see a common theme here, right? Moving forward. And the theme is dealing with external data, like a hybrid model. Dealing with large, complex designs, drawings, and assemblies, and reusing data. Now, I know these are not novel, brand new, but I can tell you that in the last 2 to 3 years, those three aspects have really, they've taken priority in our lives and in our teams at our companies. Those are the heavy hitters. Configurations allow us to reuse data, right? So that's why that's important. we are adding into that because we understand that you guys do not want to reinvent the wheel every time, right? We are looking for jumping off points to start these designs, and sometimes configurations are a great tool to help us achieve that. And we've done really good with them. However, as Robbie mentioned in his slide, that interface for the tool, the tabular kind of input, it had some limitations. So for many of us, we might create a configuration, but I know even for me, I would teach our clients, once you get that configuration going, you might want to just pop right into Excel because you can do everything. And that's still, that's still the case. You can do that, but just know we've now built in some of those tools that we used to do the work in Excel. I can now do that within SOLIDWORKS interface, so I don't have to exit out of it. So like Robbie said, adding features, building up those tabulated formats, that used to be easier in Excel, but now I would tell you, go try it out in SOLIDWORKS natively. Do not exit out and see what this tool can do for you before you just go right into Excel.
Designers demand the ability to create manufacturable products using an ever-increasing variety of file formats. SOLIDWORKS 2022 makes this easier than ever with new enhancements for mesh, BREP formats, and tools that help you view and edit critical product information. The ball valve equipped with the lockout tagout feature is perfect for this control panel, but the handle is too plain. The supplier provided their files in BREP format. In SOLIDWORKS 2022, working with these files is just like working with native geometry, thanks to the new hybrid modeling capabilities. Creating features like chamfers, extrudes, planes are no longer required intermediate bodies and Boolean operations. The handle needs a slot for a lock. Now in 2022, Hole Wizard's slot length can be defined by arctangents or centers. Also, when positioning the slot, the tab key toggles between vertical and horizontal orientation. Manufacturing this handle will require draft. Bidirectional parting line draft would be the most appealing. In SOLIDWORKS 2022, you can now create draft in both directions when using a parting line, rather than having to create two separate draft features. The mesh file contains 3 bodies, but the manufacturer needs access to the individual component. Now in SOLIDWORKS 2022, Pack and Go recognizes referenced features that are created using the save bodies and split part commands. This way, you can choose which files you need without having to find them manually in Windows Explorer. Section views are a great way to inspect components, but sometimes a suitable plane doesn't exist. Now you can specify a section plane from within a cylindrical face, conical face, or an axis. These 22mm cut threads are useful for rapid prototyping, but it's too much detail for higher volume manufacturing and they make the large file complex. The new Stud Wizard is a great choice here, as it automatically recognizes the diameter of the boss but still provides a list of different thread sizes and pitches to use. You can even create an undercut with full control over the dimensions. The Stud Wizard adds cosmetic threads that can be called out in a 3D annotation or 2D drawing. In SOLIDWORKS 2022, configuration-specific properties have been separated into 2 tabs, Configuration Properties and Property Summary. In the first tab, property information is added just like you expect. Now you can choose which configuration they're applied to using the drop-down. The Property Summary tab provides a useful way to compare configurations based on their custom property. Designers sometimes have no choice of the files they receive from a supplier, but still need to support the design through several different manufacturing methods. SOLIDWORKS 2022 provides the tools you need to get the job done fast and efficiently, while providing you improved visibility and critical product information. SOLIDWORKS makes it easy to create frames and structures with structure systems. 2022 is no exception with enhancements to secondary members, the introduction of connection elements, and more. Secondary members are defined using existing structural bodies. This vertical post will be carried in heavy compressive and bending load, so I will need extra support. Creating multiple secondary members is fast in SOLIDWORKS 2022, now that you can select a point and multiple bodies. All corner treatments are just as intuitive as defined as they have been in the past. you have full control over the end result. Also new in SOLIDWORKS this year is the ability to define and insert connection elements. These are great for members that are designed to be bolted rather than welded. These legs require a base plate so the cradle can be attached to the floor. Just select the member and the plate is automatically centered at the end. If a connection element doesn't meet your design needs, it can be adjusted on the fly. These forklift lifting channels may need to be replaced if damaged, so a connection element is perfect for this situation. Defining the position of the connection element is easy. Simply select the faces of the members, then use the convenient member planes, which reveal themselves automatically to the center element. The connection element is smart and can be pre-cut to find holes in the members you select. Gussets and end caps are also now supported for structural members in SOLIDWORKS 2022 and are just as easy to define as before. Mirroring features and components is a very commonly used function. Now in SOLIDWORKS 2022, you can mirror across two planes or faces. No longer will operations like this require two separate mirror features. SOLIDWORKS introduced the ability to create an edge flan on the circular edge of a non-planar base in 2021. This has been improved to allow you to edit the edge flange directly inside the property manager so that you can specify the exact length you want. Structure Systems is a powerful but flexible tool. Creating frames and structures is easier than ever.
Okay. So, good stuff, right? There's a few things I actually wanted to mention and I forgot because there's always so much. But the properties, the custom properties in that video where we were able to apply different properties to different configurations through the pull down, big one. That's I think very easy to be able to put that, associate that information correctly. So I enjoyed that. Of course, the structural members and adding in those complex, in that case, it was those round bars, pretty awesome, right? Where you're just identifying points and a direction or a vector to give that, and it intersects and does the trimming and all that. So there's a lot, really cool stuff in there. Hopefully you guys saw that as well. The mirror command, if you could tell by my voice inflection, that's probably my favorite feature of the entire 2022 release, is being able to mirror across two planes in one function, as opposed to having to do a mirror, hit OK, and go back, reselect those bodies or whatever, and mirror it across the other plane. So for me, that's something I think I do on almost a daily basis. So that's a big one for me, and I hope you found that to be the same. Okay, so as I said, after this presentation, please go back and look at this stuff and see if you can incorporate it into what you're doing today, everybody. Okay, now we're down to assemblies. So again, assemblies, we've broken this into two separate categories. We have performance and we have features. So you can imagine, as I said, the bigger functions that are coming out these days that really kind of help us and impact us the most probably have to do with the larger assemblies and the performance that we have on a day-to-day basis in the application. So this is always something that I think this will just be something we see improving year over year, even after I retire. These models are getting more complex. We're putting in a lot more data and the graphics are getting more intense. So, you start building in BREP models and all this stuff, and it's just an intense environment. So performance is key for us to be able to do our job. And we're going to take a look at some of the options in here. Robbie had alluded to, LDR and the design review for the drawing environment. Those are the great tools, and we just expanded upon those. So if you're not using these things, right, because you're stuck in 2010 or something using, things with feathers on it, we have a lot more going on, everybody. So please check out these new functions. Okay, the first one is, like I said, LDR mode. It's really just the thing. Go search LDR for SOLIDWORKS and start learning. Okay, It's how we're getting these large assemblies into SolidWorks. It's how we're getting large assemblies from our supply chain into SolidWorks. It's how we're getting into the SolidWorks so that we can start working. All right, LDR is a huge tool that has come out, like I said, a couple years ago, and it's just gotten more potent every year. And it just helps us get into these assemblies. You know, that's really the intention. And that was probably what SolidWorks was receiving from the user community is, hey, I need a tool just to get in here. I'm not even saying I got to work at this point. I just need to get in here. Why is it taking 6 hours to open this crazy thing I got from, you know, my supply chain? So this gets you into that model. We had that. Now we can get in here a little bit deeper. We can start to go into sub-assemblies. We can start to really do the traditional workflow that we all have been taught and come to know and love. And this LDR mode is now built into all these parts of our workflow. So in the past, depending on where you were, LDR would kind of initiate and then go away, and then initiate and go away. And now it's kind of, like I said, it's built much more into all the facets that we get into, such as activating a subassembly. Okay, so keep your eye out for that. And again, if you're not using LDR, if this is news to you, you need to leave here today and start researching this, because I know what your assemblies look like, everybody. We get the call a lot, you know, I need a new graphics card, I need more RAM. I don't know that you do. We don't always agree on that, you know. We're looking at it and I'm like, I think you just need to use the tools better. So keep in mind LDR, and like I said, make sure it's something that is an initiative for you to look at when you leave today. Now, from a usability standpoint, when we're in assemblies, we're always looking to make things, you know, faster and quicker and easier. So what we have here is we have an option to move with a triad. This is pretty nice. You'll see it's just our standard XYZ triad, right? Really easy to use. Almost like a cursor that pops up, right? You can just drag things and move it. So keep your eye on the triad. They're great for eyeballing things into place when you just kind of got to get them close, or you just want to create a clearance between two objects. It's a great way to get things located very quickly. Quick Mates Control does kind of the same thing, right? It's a great way to locate things quickly. But as Robbie had mentioned, a lot of times we would spend time, I know I did, I would spend a lot of time orienting the part almost perfect before I would go through the mate, just to make sure SolidWorks got it right? You know, just to make sure it didn't go in upside down or accidentally get attached to the wrong axis or whatever. So I'm not saying don't do that. You know, that definitely improves your chances of success. But the Quick Mates Control now has some built-in options that allow us to kind of alleviate that. We don't have to be as precise with before we enter that command. We can flip things, get them coincident, get them concentric, all in one shot. Okay. The next one is pattern-driven seed position. Now, I had needed this one in the past. It's been a while, but I kind of wish this was out about 5 years ago when I needed it. But the idea here is you'll see that wherever that seed is, the pattern propagates from that seed. If I move the seed, the pattern updates. It's one of these that I would just say, I might just say, look, watch the video. It's easier to see than to explain it. But essentially that seed is, you know, it has been kind of the premise that drives that pattern now more than ever. And the association to that seed is much more rich than it had been in the past. I mentioned to you configuration tables, so we're going to take a look at those at the assembly level. Again, those configurations apply to assemblies and parts, right? So what you're going to learn in this video, you can apply it to a part as well. The whole interface, it's following suit where you can just build these features up, like I said, without having to go into Excel. We also have some bill of material functions that have been added in. And bill of material, again, you know, large assemblies and bill of materials, those are going to be around for a while. We have to be able to create consistent, predictable, clean bill of material for whatever the reason. And that's changing as well. You know, the bill of material, when I first started getting into this, we'd call out our bolts and parts and the quantity and everyone was happy. And now we're having to delineate that, right, into, well, what's a weldment? What's considered a subassembly in that weldment? What's considered a part within that weldment? Where's my cut list? Where's my hole tables? We've had these functions, but we're starting to really get some tools to utilize them with flexibility. You know, we had the tools, but there was a lot of workarounds we all did to get those charts and tables the way that, you know, downstream processes needed them in our company. And that's kind of what we're alluding to here, is we're giving you some of the tools at the bill of material level where you can format this information as needed, so that it's a lot more flexible to get that table or whatever you're looking for that downstream process. All right. So keep an eye out for that, because there's some really good ones in bill of material. The one that's listed here is excluding it. Okay. And we've all seen, you know, we build up our assemblies, we put humans in it, we put fences around the robot. We don't build a human, we don't build the fence, but it's things that we add, right, to that assembly so that we can kind of communicate what it does better. Well, sometimes we don't want to call out the human or the fence on the bill of material, and that's what the exclude from bill of materials option did for us. So that's been around for a while. What we can do now, though, is when we create a configuration, I can automatically say, do not include this in the bill of material, so I don't have to follow up on it. So when you're building a part, you can tell it that intention up front. I'm building this part, it's a configuration, but I never want to include it in the bill of material because I'm just building humans, whatever it may be. Okay, so keep your eye out for all those guys. It's really some good ones in there. The quick mate alignment system has an option, so you'll see this in the video as well. Just know that you can go in. This is a per machine controlled function, so each one of you will be allowed to kind of go in and adjust how that mate alignment reacts. Always prompt or never, right? The standard 3 options. So just know you're kind of in control of that one. Okay, let's take a look at our assembly enhancements for 2022.
SOLIDWORKS 2022 offers fast ways to access your designs from the start. Large Design Review Mode, introduced in previous releases, provides a lightning fast way to open your large assemblies with very few limitations. The large and complex 6031 component Nemo submersible from U-Boat Works opens in merely 13 seconds, allowing you to get to work faster. New for SOLIDWORKS 2022 is the ability to easily open drawings from a large design review assembly in detailing mode right from the right mouse menu. Detailing mode is an extremely efficient way to open both and work on your existing drawing documents. Like opening the large assembly of the Nemo, the drawing is opened rather quickly as well. 21 seconds total. Detailing mode is a fully interactive way to work with large drawings that have already had their views created. In this environment, you can continue detailing your design, adding dimensions, notes, tables, and more. The ability to quickly access drawings from large design review mode in this way will streamline how you work with large complex designs. Additionally, in 2022, you can open subassemblies from large design review mode in this lightweight format as well. This ensures that you're not loading unnecessary information that's not currently needed. Whenever you want access to the fully resolved models, you can choose to open them from the same right mouse menu. Likewise, you can also resolve an assembly that is already open in large design review mode. This ability to access lightweight models and quickly switch between them will ensure you can work in the most efficient way possible. Moving components is now easier than ever in SOLIDWORKS 2022. When selected from the Feature Manager tree, you're now presented with a triad that makes it extremely simple to get the component in just the right spot. X, Y, and Z and rotation are all at your fingertips. The Quick Mates toolbar in 2022 also gives you more control by presenting you with the option to make adjustments before adding a mate such as an alignment. This is also true when adding circular types of mates, where you'll be given the opportunity to lock the rotation before confirming. This is especially useful in the case of mates that allow for both of those types of conditions. The new ability to add this extra control while mating with the Quick Mates toolbar makes it fast and simple to quickly build your assemblies. The intelligent pattern-driven component patterns get even smarter in SOLIDWORKS 2022. Now, when you choose a component to pattern, SOLIDWORKS will always choose that the component's location as the seed for determining how to create the position in other instances. Even if you change the location of the component to a different location, the pattern will still assume the component you are patterning in its seed position. This means it's much easier to take advantage of existing patterns and whole wizard features to quickly position multiple instances of components, such as hardware, that rapidly populate in your assemblies. Configurations are now a powerful way to create alternate versions of parts and assemblies all within a single document. You can choose to have instances of components included or excluded from different versions of the design. You can also choose to use alternate configurations of other components in each configuration. The possibilities are endless, and as more variations are made, keeping track of this can get complicated. New in SOLIDWORKS 2022 is the configuration table. This table makes it much easier to both create and manage configurations. From the table, you can add new versions to your design, and you can choose to toggle between suppression state of different components on or off. The controls make it easy to see your changes as you're working as well. If you make changes to the configuration manually, such as suppressing components that weren't included before, they will be added to the table as well. The configuration table also has filters to make it easier to focus on what's important. For example, you may want to ensure that custom properties for each configuration are unique to each new version of the assembly. Finally, when looking at a bill of material, there will be cases when components in the design should not be included. This option can be controlled from the component properties in the assembly to specify this. However, this can become time-consuming for parts that are regularly and should be included. New for SOLIDWORKS 2022 is a new configuration option at the component level where you can specify that a component should have this option enabled by default, saving you time from having to change this every time the component is used. SOLIDWORKS 2022 introduces a wide variety of performance and usability enhancements.
Great. Okay. So, like I said, we got a bunch more stuff going in there. That assembly environment's a big one. For me, the large design review, it's probably one of the biggest challenges, or the large assemblies is the biggest challenge facing our clientele. So, I'm happy to see that we keep adding functions to that environment, because I think it's really just going to get worse and worse over the years as it goes forward. And we have some tools we're going to discuss over lunch that will help alleviate that. But those are tools of the future. We need to figure out what we can do today, right? And these are the tools that you have right now accessible to you that you can help kind of get past all that. Okay, so this brings us to our drawings environment. And again, historically, drawings is where the rubber meets the road. So we are usually, this is really pertinent to us, right? These are things that we probably spend too much time on detailing and putting all these documents together, for deliverables for our design. So up till now, everything we've looked at helps us model and helps us build things and helps confirm form, fit, and function. This tool set coming up is going to help us document that information, right? Again, all kinds of things have been added to drawings that we have been asking for years and years. We're getting around to it. These lists are long, everybody, right? You can imagine I wouldn't ask a detailer, what would you like in SOLIDWORKS? Because that would be a long conversation. There's always something we're after. There's always a magic button we want. And we continue to add these in year over year. So 2022 is no different. Again, the big kind of thing this year is that detailing mode, right? When you have those large complex assemblies and drawings, which we have, a lot of you have many sheets, right? You could have 5, 10, 20 sheets on in a drawing, section views and all kinds of stuff. That's killing us, and it's taking way too much time, and it's really making our experience not very pleasurable. So look at detailing mode if you haven't. For if you're having those issues where you're opening drawings and it's taking you quite a bit of time just to get working. Detailing mode, the intention of it is to get you working. So check those out. Like I said, we've just kept adding in more tools. This year, we also have a circular dimension where you can toggle it with the tab key to go from radius, diameter, and linear. So again, just little things that we've wanted, but that will shave some time off. And if you do quite a bit of those dimensionings, like a lot of us do, right? We have a lot of holes. That can really shave some time off when you add it all up over a day or a week. Same thing with the symmetric linear diameter. We were always able to put this in our models. Now we have an option to kind of call that out in our drawing the same way, right? We could put a linear diameter when we were doing a revolve at the 3D model. And you could get that in, but then there'd be missing geometry and it was a little bit weird, right? So now we have an option where you can add this in and it's just an option, right? You just simply say it's a linear diameter and you can get it. All of this is stemming into what the future is looking like, and that is geometric tolerancing. More and more, our clients are incorporating GD&T into their detailed drawings. Why not, right? I was a big fan of GD&T back in the late 90s when I got out of college. I was kind of scratching my head as to why not, why more companies weren't using it. And it really just simply came down to the resources involved didn't know how to use GD&T. Whether it was in engineering or it was in manufacturing, it wasn't a real efficient way to communicate because nobody could read it. So we're seeing that take place from it used to be just Fortune 100 companies. Now we're getting into the mid-range, and even the smaller fab shops are including GD&T. We have excellent tools to help you manage this, like our inspection tools. We have all kinds of things that tie into that. So if this is an initiative in your company, know that it's an initiative at a lot of companies. You're not the only one. We're here to help. We have training for this. And now we have additional tools in SOLIDWORKS to help us document some of those really high tolerance features that you're looking for. The detail cut list and the BOM, I alluded to this earlier that we've added some information to the bill of materials to help us be a little flexible. This is the backside of that, right? This is the deliverable. This is what we can do in the drawing environment to format those tables and get that information downstream the way they want it formatted. Predefined views have always been available in drawings. And again, if you're not familiar with this, what the intention was there is I could just say, hey, create a drawing of this block, and I would automatically have my predefined views, front, top, right side, and isometric. So that shaved a few clicks off, and kept a standardized drawing in my company, right? That's kind of the intention there, is it keeps everything the same. So now we still have that, but we've added in the flat pattern for sheet metals and trimetric and dimetric views. So sheet metal flat patterns, you can imagine for those companies that had sheet metal templates and did a lot of sheet metal parts, that would have been kind of nice to be able to have a predefined flat view, flat pattern, right, associated to that drawing. And again, what that kind of initiates is it initiates a situation where somebody could potentially send a drawing out that doesn't have a flat pattern, and that's partly what this addresses, right? It creates that standardized drawing for sheet metal so that we always have a flat pattern associated with the other views. And the last one there, I'm going to mention for our MBD customers. So that's model-based definition for those of you who are just getting on board with this. But this is kind of the tool or the initiative that removes drawings from our workflow, right? I started this whole segment with the fact that drawings are taking a lot of our time, and it's taking too much time. The hard stuff is designing in form, fit, function, right? It shouldn't take us too much time to just put a dimension on these things, but it is. And that's because it takes a lot of skills to be able to dimension a part right? We all know that. So I'm not belittling the drawing environment. It's just a time suck, if you will, and and it doesn't get us, it doesn't get our part better. It just communicates downstream. So I am a big fan of model-based definition. It does remove drawings to some degree from your workflow. We start to dimension our 3D models instead. Why not? All the information you're building is already in there. So it's something to look at. It's a technology that's coming on a little bit more readily available to most. I think that our mindsets are changing. I think people are more open to looking at what's coming out, and model base is one of those. All right, this, like I said, it's the intention is that it removes drawings or limits drawings in your workflow and shifts that work to the 3D model. And that is a big culture change, and there's a lot to that, but that's what MBD does. In 2022, we have additional options built into that HTML file that we generate. That's actually what we send through your process, not a 2D drawing. It's a 3D HTML, and we have some additional tools. So for those of you on MBD, check that out. Give us a call if you want any additional input on it. And for those of you not that think that might be an initiative, please let us know, and we can have that discussion with you. Okay, so I've mentioned this large design review and detailing mode, and Robbie mentioned it. I think you guys got it, right? It's important. We're just giving you some stats over year how the detailing mode has achieved the goal that we're after, right? The complaint was, I can't get in my drawing. It's too large, it's too complex. I just want to put a dimension or a balloon. And the response from SOLIDWORKS is what you see on the screen. So this detailing mode, year, it's getting better and better. And again, it's just giving us the capability to get into those models and those drawings a lot quicker. Now, just so you know, new here is an option in detailing mode under your document properties for how to save this information. So you can imagine when we hit save on a drawing, what are we saving? If I have 20 sheets in there, in the past, that might take a long time. And I've heard that complaint, right? I only put one balloon, Rob, but now it's saving all 20 sheets. So just know that these options I'm referring to here kind of help you drive what extent that save and that rebuild takes place. It won't resave every drawing. It will resave the drawing that you were working on. And you can imagine that saves oodles of time. And do that 5 or 6 times a day. And I think your ROI will be in there somewhere. Okay, the detailed cut list, as I mentioned, just more flexibility, right? We'll take you through it in the video and give you an idea what this is, but from top level down to parts, down to indented, we have some additional options in there. Those 3 top level parts and indented, that's not new, right? It's the options within them. It's the flexibility within them. It's the flexibility to leverage a weldment at certain times. That's what's changing. That's the new features. So as I said, I think it just allows us to format those tables a little bit better. And so without further ado and me talking, let's go ahead and take a look at drawings and what's new in SOLIDWORKS 2022.
Companies like U-Boat Works need to build it right the first time. That means clearly communicating through SOLIDWORKS drawings, and sometimes these files are huge. For 3 years, detailing mode has been evolving. You can even open the largest prints in just seconds and work on them without the overhead of loading any parts assemblies or even having them on your machine. You can add or edit notes, snap in missing balloons, organize sheets, add dimensions, set tolerances. New in 2022, you can insert whole tables and standard views from the view palette. When you're done, you can save and even print completely and accurately to PDF. What about older drawings that haven't been accessed in years? In 2022, SOLIDWORKS has extended the ability to open any prior version drawing right to detailing mode. This is great because you'll always be able to open a drawing, even if you have some that are referenced older models. So what else is new in drawings? How about the new in context menu? This pop-up lets you toggle a circular dimension, diameter, radius, or linear. For turn parts, the new symmetric linear diameter dimension will come in handy. These are double dimensions, which I can apply in a single click to a silhouette edge, or in a batch with multiple axis mode. Okay, so importing this information, like I said, this is more along the lines of building systems. Okay, so 3D interconnect and that whole other rigmarole I just talked about, that's for, mechanical, like I said, PTC, CATIA, Inventor, bringing that kind of data. The other side of this, and I've been hearing a lot about this since 2020 now, and into 2021, this got actually pretty common. Hey, I've got a SOLIDWORKS model, Rob, and I either need to send this to somebody who is a building, who's an architect kind of in the building systems space, or I'm receiving that data. But this is another new common request that we have from our customers. How do I interface with the building systems environment and those architects? So what we have here is called an IFC file format, not new. We just have some options that allow us to leverage that information better than we had in the past. So we can export IFC from SOLIDWORKS, and that gets into those building systems programs if this applies to you. And we can import from those building systems an IFC file. So if you're going to be part of this, what file format do we use? IFC, right? That's usually the standard go-to that all these programs can read and export as. You of course have DXF and DWG, right? We're not going to get past that. We're always going to be utilizing those types of formats, whether it's for, just a laser or something in manufacturing. Maybe it's to communicate outside. Just know that we've added in 2022 the capability to attach colors to that information. So that's pretty nice because, well, frankly, we communicate with colors. So sometimes I have many companies that don't even call out hole sizes. The holes on their drawing are attached to a color, and people read a color chart, right? Green holes are 1/4 20, orange holes are 3/8 15, whatever. So we communicate through colors, so colors are important. And the other part of it is we print in colors, right? We make things in colors. We have decals, so why not add the colors? So again, we're just enriching this information so that it's a lot more realistic and closer to that final product. Our importing performance is pretty fast. It's been creeping up over the years. And again, they just keep rewriting things so that it's utilizing your hardware quicker. So when you see, if you're wondering, like, how can I be faster this year than I was last year with the same hardware? It's how they utilize that hardware. It's the drivers in your graphics, right? It's the ones and zeros in this code that are more efficient, that allow you to leverage that same hardware better. So, we're just trying to save some money, cut cost, right? That's what we do. Okay, so let's go ahead and take a look at that last one. This is going to be for importing, and that will wrap up our deep dive for this set. When collaborating with others performing design work focused on facilities, often you need to share your design data using alternate file formats like IFC. SOLIDWORKS 2022 has focused on improving both efficiency and reliability of saving IFC file formats out for design tools to leverage. Additionally, 2022 has improved its flexibility when reading IFC files as well. Now, when you open an IFC file, you can choose to filter specific object types to import, avoiding the need to open unnecessary geometry and focus on just the information you need to work with. For example, your task may only require the walls, floor, and furniture within a building. All of this means the imported files both open faster, but also contain only complex geometry for the specific design task you need to perform with working with IFC data. Also new in SOLIDWORKS 2022 is the ability to better support the export of DXF and DWG file formats from part files. Components often contain color information that is important for manufacturing processes, such as color of sketches, bend lines, or other information. Now when using export to DXF DWG from the part file and enabling to include these objects, their colors will be honored in the output of the file. This is extremely valuable for downstream operations where colors can represent different manufacturing processes or parameters for NC tooling equipment. SOLIDWORKS 2022 has improved the way to collaborate with others by improving overall import and export file formats. So that, like I said, the challenge for my team year over year when these rollouts come up is pulling out of this myriad of new features, the things that kind of hit home. These are the ones we felt apply to most of everybody on this call. So there's a lot more. There always is. But with the time we had allotted today, and so we don't risk you guys getting too bored, we're going to call it a day there with the deep dive. Please look up all that information. Please go back, research it, and please reach out to us if any of these things are news to you. If you're wondering what they do or how to apply them, this is what we do, right? We know how these tools apply, and we know the questions to ask before we go just inserting a tool into your work, into your process, So I appreciate everybody for taking the time and being patient with my little technical difficulties, but it's another exciting year. I'm going to have a presentation coming up over lunch that will discuss a little bit of the future of our environment and our careers, and it will give us an idea, some food, something to chew on for while we're eating lunch, literally. So again, thank you everybody for your time, and I guess we'll just go ahead and take the break until we get back to our next session. Is that correct, Robbie?
It is, and we'll post that schedule up there during lunch. We'll have all the schedules for all the sessions there if we want to reference those.
Great. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, guys.
Okay, everybody, we're going to get going here. Stay on track so we don't push all the other wonderful presentations aside. All right, looks like the screen is showing. I think my audio is good, so I'm going to start rolling here, everybody. So today's the 12:30 slot that I got here, we got about an hour. Probably take a little bit less than that, but I wanted to take a moment to just kind of go through the future of where our industry was heading and get our client base up to speed on some of the technology that if you haven't encountered yet, you're bound to encounter it. And although it's not CAD related, it ties into us, and I think it's going to be beneficial so you can make some educated decisions moving forward as you start to look at some of these things. My name is Rob Stocklosa. Again, for those of you this morning, I did some presentations on the what's new. Little background on myself. I'm a mechanical engineer, started in manufacturing, got pulled into PTC, and just one of those things by mistake almost, just hanging out and met some people, and great opportunity came along. So I went to work. At that time, it was when Wildfire was coming out, and got onto that. Really cut my teeth in the reseller chain and working with larger companies and all this technology at that time. But I learned a lot during that experience. Following that, started getting on with some Autodesk stuff. I really thought Inventor was going to be kind of the way of the future, so I jumped on that, and then I had a moment, I don't know when it was, 2005 or so, and I realized that no matter where I went, I kept losing to SOLIDWORKS. So can't beat them, join them, right? But I tried everyone else, and I realized very fast that the future was definitely a SOLIDWORKS future. So like many of us and on the meeting today, we all decided that we should probably pick it up, right? So I've got quite a bit of background dealing with those products, and from a SOLIDWORKS product line, I deal with I touch on all of our ancillary products, from core SOLIDWORKS into PDM, into simulation, 3D experience. I'll do a little bit of electrical. I'm in just about everything that we have, and I have a pretty good understanding of it. So it really helps me when I'm dealing with you guys to kind of be that linchpin between what your goals and objectives are and what our technology and applications will offer, and how to marry those two together. So let's begin. Working in remote environments. Why did I choose to take an hour of our day to discuss this? Well, the reason I did is over the last probably year and a half or two, um, this this issue became some pretty hot stuff in our support chain. So we were getting 2, 3, 4 calls a week, dealing with I'm at home, I'm here, I'm there, and I can't access things, or uh, it's just very slow performance. Even to the extent that we saw some packet loss happening, and the data just wasn't, the operations that we were initiating weren't actually taking place. Um, so it created quite an issue. There's no doubt we had many people calling us with missing data cards in PDM, taking a long time to open files, just moving apart through your process. We had some issues, and I guarantee on this call, many of you have experienced that, right? That's just part of the time we're in. So we're going to discuss how the future is adjusting to this new normal. All right, from our standpoint. Um, some of this might be opinionated from me. Some of it's facts. Some of it's guesswork of who can tell where the future goes. So I think when I put this together, I kind of approached it with that. I don't know what the future holds. I don't know which way things will go, but it pays to know all the technology that's out there so that we can really get an idea of what options might be coming down the pipeline at us. So that's why I chose, to spend some time doing this. Remote networking, why now? Well, for one thing, I just wanted to ask if anybody can tell why I left this graphic. I was I was going to change the graphic out in something with spaghetti, right? And things going all over representing a crazy network. And I started looking at it, and this guy's actually running a remote control. He's running that blue arm, and they're putting in some foundation or caissons, or right. It's something, and it's a dangerous environment. So what he's doing, right, is he's removed himself from that dangerous environment, working remotely, and this has been going on for eons, right? But because we don't have a dangerous environment, I don't think it got to us. But remote controlling things has been around for a long time, right? It has made things easier and more accessible and safer. So I think it's just our time, if you will. We've definitely complained over the years. We've made it known that we've run into some issues, and it's impacting our productivity, especially when you're not in the office. And it's consistent across the board. It doesn't matter if you have a huge budget IT department, internal, with some of the sharpest minds you could run across, or if you're a 25 person company and you outsource your IT. Nobody nobody is out of this. Nobody's left out. Nobody is getting special treatment. We are kind of all trying to mitigate this new challenge of having people all over the place working, but accessing the same consistent data. So, you know, this guy construction, I'm like, well, what the heck? They've been doing it, this remote thing. It's just, why is it so crazy for us to kind of wrap our head around it? Everyone's doing it. And of course, what really pushed everything forward was the virus, right? This virus, I never seen anything like it in the time that I've been doing this type of work. Usually, technology takes a long time to adopt, right? We all know that. We all know our companies and how it, what it takes to switch technology. So this is something that really I still ponder at night. Holy cow, I've never seen anything like this. How did this happen? It's almost like the internet. When the internet came, one day we didn't have it, the next day we did, and then boom, it just took off with all these functions and capabilities. That's kind of how I see remote networking. The tools have been around. We've been talking about 3DX. We've been talking about some of these tools I'm going to introduce you to for a few years, but I don't know that any of us really took it serious, right? We were just kind of all like, okay, that's cool. Get back to work. Open up SOLIDWORKS on my desktop, and you wait your 45 minutes for this to upload, and you wait for the accounting department to finish backing up their database, and then you can get to it. And we just went back to work. But that's changing. Like I said, this pandemic has made it so everybody is looking at how to leverage this remote workforce that we now understand is fully capable, right? There's not a lot of loss in someone doing some design work across the country. So, that's kind of the premise to this whole presentation is this technology's been around. We've all heard about it. We all kind of know what it does. We all are experiencing the pain of the current setups. But like I said, if you're like me, I would have thought the adoption would have taken a long time. And I'm seeing that it's not, right? The compelling reason that we're here right now talking about this is this virus. It has pushed technology adoption forward at a rate I have never seen in my life at 45 years old. It's just not happening. We still encounter companies that are coming off AutoCAD and are asking questions about how to leverage parametric solid modeling. So when I have that kind of a meeting in the morning, and then in a meeting in the afternoon, somebody is saying, yeah, let's move forward with full cloud-based whatever, when it's only a few years old, it really racks my head. And I'm trying to understand, what pushed this whole thing forward and why this is being so successful. And the reason is simply that virus, if you ask me. It opened up our minds. It opened up the capabilities. It opened up all kinds of things that we were closed to prior to it, right? If you told your boss, I'm just going to do this system at home, they probably wouldn't have liked that. They would rather you in the office. But I'm up here in Raleigh, North Carolina, and I could tell you many of our pharmaceutical companies, I mean, these are huge, GlaxoSmithKline, Pfizer, things you hear about daily that have these massive, massive plants. They're downsizing into office space that's a third of the size because the workforce is going home. And we realize that we're just as productive. So, like I say, I think we're more readily accepting this, and the management and the people making those types of decisions are also looking at this massive problem, and they're also more readily to accept this than some other technology we've probably seen in the past. So let's get on board with everybody and become remote, right? They've been doing it with cranes and things. Why not us? So what's the problem? Well, let's discuss it. Now, granted, 56K may not be what we're after here, or what we're the environment we're in. But I will say that I have sat with some of you. I've watched you do your work, and it feels like we're 56K. That's for sure. So something's going on, right? Because we're not on AOL anymore with a modem, so it can't be that. So what's happening? Why does it feel that we're still on a 56K bandwidth and things aren't fast? And that's really what I want to talk about, the why behind what's happening. Okay, so this is the problem explained. Let's talk about why we're even discussing this. So we're going to do a little bit of learning. So for those of you who are not network geniuses, you don't have to be, but it's good to have a general understanding of how things work, right? That way when they don't work, we can gather some kind of a intelligent hypothesis of why things aren't working. But this is really the root cause of everything. A lot of times is that cable, right? However it is, whether it's a piece of glass or it's a copper cable or it's a satellite or it's a wireless signal or whatever it is, right? We're transmitting data from A to B. And let's talk about what goes on when we transmit data from A to B. We have three core values that we can determine, the speed and quality of that connection with. One is bandwidth, which we're all very familiar with bandwidth, right? Bandwidth is how most internet companies sell their products to us from when we're at home, we just look at bandwidth. And you can see that bandwidth is basically the diameter, if you will, of that cable, right? So a bigger diameter holds more information. You can liken it to a water pipe, if you will. If I have a bigger pipe, I can put more water through there. But that's bandwidth. It's the size of that pipe. So what was so exciting I used to work at Corning making fiber optics, and that was prior to this, when glass came along, right? And we had this fiber optic glass, we could fit, it was like 15,000 copper cables into one strand of glass that was 150 microns in diameter. That's less than your hair. So what a novel thing, right? And that was back in 1998. We started really mass producing this, thinking it was going to go all over. Now fiber did get laid many places, but as you know, I know for me, I just saw fiber come to my neighborhood, last year was when Google Fiber was, hey, we now can get fiber to your house. Look how long that took. In 1998, I was manufacturing fiber optics, and it didn't get to my house until 2020. So that infrastructure is just getting in place. And that took a long time, right? We had laid it across the oceans, but we're now building that internally to, in our country, and that's helping a lot. Okay, so just know that part of the issue up till this point was simply we're using copper cable, and that's being slowly pulled out and replaced with fiber optics, which is much better. Not only does it handle more data, but that data can go longer distances without being repeated or cleaned up in any way. So there's a lot of benefit to having a piece of glass. So bandwidth is the diameter of that. When we have glass, the diameter becomes less important because it can handle so much, right? So when we talk about bandwidth, understand we're only discussing one aspect of what that cable is going to be handling, right? The other term that you're very probably familiar with is latency. All right, and latency is simply the speed of that water as it goes through the tube. So for you engineers on the call, you know that when we speed up things, right, there's a pressure and there's a relationship with the diameter of our tube, the pressure and how much we put in there. There's a relationship. Same thing here, right? What if I have a big bandwidth, but my latency, the speed, is slow? I don't really benefit, do I? I could have a 3-foot diameter bandwidth tube, but if I'm doing, the speed of a turtle on my latency, the time it takes to go through that tube, I'm not benefiting. So again, bandwidth is one part of the story, and latency is another part of the story. And those are the two that we usually look at, right? That's usually what you guys are calling me and saying, Rob, my bandwidth or something's going on. We do ping tests and we look at these. But guess what we never look at? Throughput. Has anybody even heard of throughput? I'm sure some of you have, but I'm sure a lot of you had not heard of that. All right. Throughput measures the data transmitted in a specific time. So how much data did we get in a period of time? That's kind of important, right? Because if I get 1 gig of data in 1 second, that's a lot. But if I'm getting 356 kilobytes in 1 second, that's not a lot. So we need to understand all three of these terms when we're talking about why your performance is slow, because they all relate to one another, right? And solving one doesn't necessarily solve the other two. Now, let me explain to you how you guys can help us figure this out. That is, and the way we do this, ping tests help, right? It tells us bandwidth, it tells us latency in milliseconds, how long that trip took. That's good information. But the other problem is when we're testing your network, it's not always the same all the time. All right, we could run tests in the morning, we could run tests in the afternoon and in the evening, and we get 3 different responses. And that's because there's different utilization of your network, right? That makes sense. So just like I-40 rush hour, there's more people on the interstate at 5 o'clock, and thus it creates slowdown. And that's exactly what is one of the components that creates a bad, bad experience for us. So just know this, we need to understand all three of these to help figure out what's actually going on at your companies and make sure that your network infrastructure is not at fault. We love to blame applications. It's the easiest thing on the planet, and so do your IT departments. And I'm not here to point fingers. We have to work together as a team, but there is a solution, and it's usually not the application. It's usually something going on here that requires quite a bit of time and effort and different skill sets, really. So I can help, or you can help me get bandwidth and latency, but what I usually don't get is throughput. That's usually an IT department that usually takes some other software to understand what the throughput actually is, because just like many products on the planet, right, it could be advertised as something, but your actual throughput is different than what it was marketed as. So we need to really understand the true reality of throughput, because that's an important value, and many of us don't even take it into account. But like I said, that's something you can engage your IT department to understand. What is our throughput? Is anyone monitoring that? Why is it taking so long to check out a file? But we have to approach this intelligently, logically, and gather data, and then we can make the right choices and the right decisions for how to set you up so that you're not having the problems you're having. This is super important. I don't care what technology you throw at the problem. If you don't have the tube right, nothing works. Got it? So we have to have these three aspects we need to be looking at and understand if these are performing to their utmost capabilities before we just go throw in technology at a problem. Okay, so like I said, throughput is something that usually I don't get from you guys, but it's an important part of this, and we need to engage IT to get good values on that. Now, if something's not happening, right? if the IT department is telling us, look, I've got 75 strands of high-end multi-mode, fiber optics, and we have this and that, something's happening. We either have a plug or we're creating too much pressure, right? We're kind of like a Falcon rocket that's pressurized. The stuff's waiting to get out, but no one's opening the valve. So there's only two problems that occur. If our bandwidth, our throughput, and our latency are all in check, which is a lot of times, right? Your IT department says, hey, this stuff looks great. I don't know what you guys are talking about. Okay, I don't argue that, but we have another problem, right? It's obviously not the tube. There's something else going on. So do we have a plug? Am I going up to a clog, right? Am I sending data? And am I waiting for a router to route me? Am I waiting for a switch to switch me, to send me where I belong? Am I waiting for a SQL server to do some calculations because we have 4 departments hitting that SQL server? What is the clog is the next question, right? Why is my tube working, but we're stopped somewhere? So that, again, takes troubleshooting and stepping in and understanding where the clog is occurring in the network. And then the analogy to the Falcon rocket, maybe it's just simply so much data, right? Maybe we're sending so much throughput. We have so many people remote. And it's not just engineering, it's accounting, it's sales, it's marketing, it's whoever. Maybe it's simply that, right? We don't have enough lanes on the interstate. It could be that. So it's one of these items that I just mentioned, or it's a combination of a little bit of each, right? And a lot of times that's the trickier one, because people will tell me my throughput's fine, my latency is fine. Maybe it's not perfect, it's a little slow, but when you start adding up slow, latency values with bad bandwidth, with a plug, with too many cars and I-40 at the same time, and each one of those takes a percentage out of our experience, then you could be looking at a 20% hit, right? And then it's really not a fun thing to do. So those can total up to a very bad experience. It's not always just one item, but these are the things we all need to be looking at. These are the terms we need to understand. And these are the process for troubleshooting. This is the process that we need to troubleshoot why things aren't working. okay? So within this one slide, usually I can pinpoint, what's happening in a network, and we can make a decision from there. So that's the problem explained, okay? That's the actual problem. Now that problem goes deep, right? It's not just for somebody using SolidWorks or someone using PDM. That's somebody surfing the internet, getting email, accessing our ERP, PLM systems, you name it. That problem probably relates differently to each one of our roles. So for us, I just want to bring it back home. I don't care about how, how it's causing other people problems. How does it relate to me, right? As a mechanical engineer or a designer, how does it relate to me? So let's talk about that. The first thing here is checking in and checking out. Many of you are on data management of some sort, whether it's PDM or not, it doesn't matter. We're sending data and we're sending requests, and we have to wait for that request to come back. And that's a total trip time, right? It goes there, does some calculating, and comes back. That's a total trip time. The biggest impacts that we have when doing that type of operation, especially in a PDM environment, is when you get latest version of a lot of parts, when you check in a lot of parts, when you're checking out a lot of parts. Anything that we're doing those types of operations, we have to communicate to many different components. And again, when we have a lot of components in place in a process, if each component is not performing 100%, then by the time we get to the end of that, right, a little bit of degradation on each component totals up to a bad experience for us. So the previous slide gave you some ideas of what to look at the cable level, right? Why is my data translating? And now I'm going to open that up. Let's say we find out the data is translating. It's fine. Throughput's fine. Bandwidth's fine. The next step is to look at these other components that could be potentially imparting some slowness on that. So checking in and checking out is a PDM function, right? So we want to start looking at, okay, what's PDM's role in this slowness? Why is it taking so long? So just know checking in and checking out, that can be, one of your most intense operations. So I believe most of our clients know that. We try not to check out, parts we don't need and things of that nature. There is some processes we follow that are logical, but at the end of the day, we still need to do our jobs. And sometimes I need to get that 1,000-part assembly, or I need to check it in. So checking in and checking out, you probably see the biggest degradation or the biggest time loss, in your work-to-work day-to-day activities. What else impacts this? Data cards. Now, data cards don't impact it as much. And the data card I have on the screen is just an example of, one I use to create PDM data cards. But I've seen your data cards, and so have you. Some of you have 5 tabs across the top, right? And in each tab, there's 15 inputs for different fields, for checking and for, descriptions of why you made changes, and you name it, right? Our data cards usually have more than 5 fields. So that's why I put that on here. If you have 5 fields and you have a simple data card, that's probably not what's killing you. But a lot of you don't. A lot of you are putting in tons of information, tons of metadata, and all that has to be written to a SQL database and pulled, right? When I get something, it also has to find it in that SQL database, capture it, and then send it back to me. So both of these, again, if you take these 2 components and you add them up, it can both impact your speed and give you an overall sense of a slower experience, right? In a I guess this is a pie in the sky world, that would be the simplest workflow for a PDM check in, check out kind of procedure, right? We have a client, we have our laptops or our workstations, and we access a SQL database, which is a server, and then we access an archive server, which is usually, most 99% of the time, that will be a different server. And then we also have our SNL server for our licensing, right? So when I check in or check out a file to SolidWorks, those 3 components are required just for any file, right? Simple bracket, that's what's required. I have to have a license, I have to have access to the SQL database, and I have to have access to the archive database. All 3 of those could potentially be different servers. They could even be different locations, in the country, different plants, right? So now we've opened it up even further, right? When we start looking at the network architecture, we start to understand, wow, okay, if each one of these components are here, wow, there's a lot of components. And if they're each slowing things down 2%, again, it just starts adding up, right? It's usually not one thing that's causing our issues, everybody. It's usually a little of all this stuff. So in the optimal world, this graphic, right, of a client to a SQL to an archive to an SNL, that would be perfect. And some of our companies, for those of you that are smaller and don't have the minutia of these larger guys, you can do that. But the rest of us can't, right? The rest of us start to get into something a little bit more intense. The data cards and check-in, check-out procedures, right? Those are all done at a client machine. So you can see and just trace the red arrows, for that loop. And remember, we're not just getting data, I'm sending data, right? It's a communication. It's like 2 people communicating. Where the database is all these servers and your client and our brain, we're all communicating together. And that takes a round trip. So it's never just send something out and not receive something, right? It's got to come back. And keep that in mind as well. When you are on a wireless network, this is a great analogy actually. When you're on a wireless network at your home and you go to, weather.com, you send out a request, right, to go to weather.com. And when you send that data wirelessly, guess what? Some of that signal gets lost, right? It's wireless. It gets lost. There's loss in wireless because of your microwaves and everything. So I send out, I want to go to weather.com. While I'm doing that, some of that information is lost. Then it crunches some numbers, goes through all the fiber networks and all the whiz bang stuff. It comes back to my house, probably with some loss. And then it sends that wireless signal back to me wherever I am. And guess what happens? More loss, right? Every time we communicate from one thing to another, whether it's me sending it to somewhere or something sending it to me, there is always loss, right? And if you understand resistance and electricity, it follows suit with that, right? Even when I have cables, there's loss. So loss is part of our deal. Every time we make a round trip, there's gonna be loss. We just have to mitigate it. The problem is most networks at companies look like the graphic on the right. They don't just have a client that sits with one router and goes and has direct access to a SQL database and archives and SNLs. We don't, right? We have 3 sites. We have replicated servers. We have web servers. We have WANs internally. We have a database that's in Wichita. We have an archives that's in Florida. My client is in Raleigh, right? That's what we have. That's the reality. And we've added a lot of components to that simple workflow that I had on the middle graphic screen. So each one of those components creates what? Some loss. All right. So we add this up. I hate to say it, everybody, but a lot of times I spent lots of time with you guys figuring out why things are slow. And the reality is sometimes there's not much we can do. It's the nature of the beast. We've created a network infrastructure that has switches, routers, replicated servers, things all over the place. And each one of these, every time I send a signal and every time it sends it back, I get lost. And you add it all up and it can equate to a bad experience. All right. So this is the actual root cause of the problem, if you will, when we look at why things are slow. And we're going to look at the tool sets out there and where they're good and where they're bad. But this is the problem. This is why we have the problem. And this is why sometimes we can't always solve the problem because it's a little bit of everything. Okay. But we can identify, and the best we can do is identify those heavy hitters, what are impacting us the most. Maybe we get you know, a new tunnel put in. Maybe we get a new router. But a lot of times it's just not that simple, everyone. Okay, so keep that in mind. One level deeper than this is just the company structure, right? This is what it takes at your company. What I didn't talk about is what's going on at your home. So let's add another layer of craziness, right? Now you got Carter's PC and Lillian's PC with your Ring doorbell and, you know, your automated popcorn makers, and everything's attached through your wireless, and everything's so when we talk about remote, the nature of remote is not in the house or not in the company, right? You're not in the building, you are remote. And when we do that, guess what? We introduce a whole nother layer of things that can slow you down. So if you look at this screen, you have your home network, which can slow you down. You have your company networks that can slow you down. You have the tube, right? The actual fiber line or whatever itself that can slow you down, and all these things within each one. That's how complicated this problem is. So it's not simple. It's not something, you know, that we can go to and what can I do differently, Rob? Why don't they just buy a new router? It's just not that simple, guys. In fact, if in my opinion, what I feel like we're at is we have almost exhausted the capabilities of the current hardware. And we've all been there. For those of you who've been in industry for a while, I have wanted to do computational fluid dynamics back in 2006, and I dare you to try it. It was real fun. I was maxing my hardware, right? It was almost a I'll never win situation to try to do something that crazy when I had 250 mega RAM or something. So understand that although these tools work, right, the amount of information for us in our field that we are moving is almost unheard of. Prior to us, we were moving Word documents, Excel files, right, time cards. That's what we were moving across this. And now here we are moving a visualized rendered assembly. So something's got to change, right? The hardware, all these little components, it's too complicated. I don't care what we do. We can make this as good as it can be, but in my mind, it will never be what we want it to be because it's just too much stuff. It's time to relook at how we're doing what you're seeing on my screen. So that brings us to what's out there today. Today's solutions, very simple: VPN, RDS, VDI, DAAS, and SAAS. It's very simple, right? So I'm going to take you through, excuse me, what these are, what they mean, what they do, and how they're going to help everything I just showed you and walked you through. Because each one of these tools, just like when I grab a tool from my toolbox, each one of these does something different, and it does it in a different way. But there's probably a best tool for your scenario, depending on your task and what your goals are and what you're after, right? But it's probably going to be customized and different for each one of you. So let's talk about this, all right? VPN, Virtual Protocol Network. We have seen this. We are using it today. RDS is Remote Desktop Services. All right, you've heard of Remote Desktop. Well, this is a service that runs on that allows for a lot better collaboration globally. VDI, Virtual Desktop Infrastructure. We're going to talk about that. It's a newer term. Desktop as a Service, DAAS, a newer term as well. And Software as a Service, a newer term. Okay, so those bottom three are kind of where the world's going. The top ones are a little bit of where we've been, if you will. So first thing is, let's make sure we're all familiar with where we've been. That is VPNs. That's what's out today. That's what we're using. That's what most of our clients are using. That's what I'm using for work. VPN allows me to access my company's network infrastructure securely from anywhere in the world, right? That's what it does. And it does work. It just doesn't work fast enough, right? That's the problem. So the issues we have today with VPN is that although this is tried and true, this thing's been around a while. We have knocked out the bugs. All these programs that interface with it have had service packs to adjust. I mean, we've got VPN pretty tight. It's tried and true, but it was intended to check email and access shared folders. And it's just true. Look back in time when VPNs came out, what were we attempting to do? I could tell you this, your boss wouldn't have let you work at home back then. That was unheard of, right? Engineering working at home, how are we going to get anything done? It just wasn't something we spoke of. And truth be told, nobody really was working at home. VPNs were intended to create and give us access to pertinent information when we were traveling, right? Or for working at night so we could work even more all the time. That's what VPN did, right? It wasn't really to address the situation we're talking about. On top of that, as we all have seen, VPN creates all kinds of port firewall issues, and it's very heavy on the infrastructures of our IT department, right? This has to be managed by your IT people or your outsourced. And they have to, keep up with ports and firewalls. And we have to make sure that our servers and service packs and OS and everything is up to date. And that's what we're using today, right? And although it works, it's great for email and it's great for shared folders. I can't say that it's great for what we do, right? It works, but is it great? I think not. All right. It might have been great a long time ago for smaller sets of data, but the data we're dealing with today, this is just not the infrastructure that's going to get it done moving forward, everybody. It's just not. So keep that in mind. VPN has been around. It does work. It's just not built for us, and it takes a lot of infrastructure internally to manage those firewalls and those port issues. And we've all seen that. Okay. So that's VPN, Virtual Protocol Network. Common VPN applications, there's a gazillion of them. Cisco, probably many of you are using that. I'm just trying to draw a parallel here so you know what I'm talking about. If you have Cisco, then that is your VPN. But if you do a quick Google search, there's about 6 million VPN applications out there. So not that special, right? Okay, the next one is our friend, just basically standard Windows RDP, RDS, okay? So we've all heard of RDP, remote desktop, and that graphic on the screen is the remote desktop process, right? Remote desktop was for internal. That's for when I'm in my house and I want to view another machine. It's for when I'm in my company at the plant and I want to view another server or something, right? That's remote desktop, and it works great for that. But that does not give us the collaboration globally that we're ultimately looking for. It does not give us the opportunity to work from home. So we have a new function came out called Remote Desktop Services, all right? This is very similar to some of the things I'm going to be talking about. It starts to get into the weeds a little, so I'll hold off on it, but it does become something of an option where you can start to collaborate globally. There is some heavy infrastructure that has to be built up. It is internal. It is all on you guys to build that up. But it's an option moving forward. It's not my favorite option. We have a few of my favorite options. So virtual desktop infrastructure. This is pretty cool. Some of you have seen it. Some of you may have not. Companies are looking at moving to this, but this is it's like any technology. It takes a lot to move to it. So understand that it's been around a little while, VDI, but because of the culture and the requirements to buy new hardware and get a new infrastructure, we're still not seeing it really in place everywhere. Now, this virus could be a compelling reason. That's why I'm showing you what this is. You should probably ask, hey, do we have virtual desktop infrastructure? Are we talking about it? How does it apply to me? The nice benefit about this is it is handled internally, but it takes away the requirement to have IT resources really spent troubleshooting your machine. All right, that's the real difference I'm seeing. IT right now, they have to split between servers and security and then making sure we can print, right? The idea here is that we simplify our workstation. So you have a very simple, none of these high powered things that we're used to, just something very simple. You tie into the cloud from anywhere. so just like a web browser. And then that cloud has the interface to your firewall, which gets you into the desktop computing infrastructure. The idea of this is that laptop that you use, it's not really being used to manage or calculate or handle graphics or anything. It's just basically surfing the web. All the other things, the main brains are taking place back in your company's infrastructure on the other side of the firewall. And then the data is sent to me. So this allows me to do complex calculations on very, very rudimentary, simple machines that don't have much RAM, that don't have high-end graphics. I'm still getting the information I need, but it's being offloaded and calculated elsewhere. Pretty cool, right? That's a big issue we have, is that we always have to have these high-end machines, and this allows us to get around that. Common programs are Citrix, VMware. You probably have heard of these, okay? So this is VDI technology, requires infrastructure, but you can be anywhere on the planet, log in on a browser, get to the cloud, and then that will take you into your company's infrastructure. And that is one of the future options that we will see. How is it possible that I could calculate a computational fluid dynamics program on a, Apple Watch? Well, this is how, okay? So this is a little complicated, but bear with me. On the left-hand side, you have your simple laptops, right? You have a designer, you have an engineer, you have an operator out on the floor, could be whoever, management. They all have very simple laptops. They sign in through a secure environment, and that gets us into the middle section of this resource layer here, okay? The resource layer is on the other side of that firewall. This is all stuff that's in your company or in the cloud. It could be anywhere, but it ain't on your laptop. And this is very high-end operating systems with very high-end graphics. All right. There's some new technology you could be checking out called the NVIDIA Grid, where it's basically like having hundreds of graphics cards or processors available for you, and then it just uses them and dishes out what you need. So this is happening behind the scenes. You send the request. This high-end area with all this fancy stuff is going to calculate that request and send it back to you on your lower level client machine, right? And here's the thing about that. We're not sending that much data, right? We're also streamlining the amount of data going back and forth. That will help the bandwidth. Also in here is our applications. Doesn't matter what. I love SOLIDWORKS, but I don't care what you use. Whatever you use will be available on the other side of that firewall as well. And again, this limits, how intense those thin clients, the laptops that we use, how much information is being sent and calculated on there. So you can see that this resource layer, which is behind your company firewall, is doing all the heavy lifting. We can be anywhere in the world and access that and have that much computing power available, even on a very simple laptop, okay? So this is kind of the background of how the VDI infrastructure works. Is this information is being calculated elsewhere and then sent to our lower level thin client laptops. And again, that helps two things. It helps the bandwidth and it helps us get remote, right? These are the tools that we have. The next one is what people are a little bit more familiar with, and that is software as a service and desktop as a service. So if you've taken some of our, or if you've been paying attention at all and you've seen 3DX, that's kind of what this stuff is built on, right? All of these programs that are out there, and particularly 3DX, is built on this cloud computing premise, where we have servers, we have desktops, we have all these fancy things happening up in that cloud, and we are just logging in on a browser, right? Well, didn't I just say that on the last slide? I did. What's the difference? All right, the difference is simply this. Who does the work? In a software as service or a desktop as service environment, much of the IT heavy lifting is done at the cloud. You're paying Azure, you're paying IBM, Amazon, right? These companies are handling some of that stuff. So it's kind of like outsourcing a lot of that complexity. Whereas the graphics and the slides from just before, the VDI, that is an internal thing, all right? Although cloud is utilized, it's more heavy on your IT department. So those are really the two, that's how you answer the question. Which one's better? Those are some of the rubs that you're going to find in that conversation. Well, we don't have, enough department resources in IT to handle that. Maybe this is your best bet, and that's 3D experience, right? That's part of the intention, is to get us remote, collaborative, and you guys not worry about having to update service packs and manage these servers. That's the option for you. But if you like work and you want VDI and you have a network infrastructure, you can look at that, okay? It's what you're after that really matters. Let's talk about the comparison between them. So just quickly, you don't have to get through all these, but the cost is really what I wanted to kind of mention to you here. VDI, right, the virtual desktop versus software as a service, which is 3DX. VDI is internal, right? That's something your company builds. So it's basically a license that you pay for, and then you own it, and you can access that VDI environment, perpetually. Whereas programs like 3DX, right, which is a software as a service, those are like per month. It's more of like a subscription model where you pay just to access, right, as you go, and you don't have to worry about anything else. You just pay as you access, and hop on it. So again, this could help determine which is better for you, right? Do I want to pay one time and have some kind of a nice, remote infrastructure, or are we okay with this subscription model? Spread the love a little bit over a few years and always be up to date with the latest and greatest using the 3DX technology. Up to you, right? But those are two options there, comparing those. We get one level further with the RDS, the remote desktop service. And again, the last thing I just want to point out here, or that's important, is that last column. Don't go back and tell your IT department, start, giving people orders. You want to talk to them, right? Because you can see, like, although VDI seems cool, it has the highest amount of labor, right, and required setup. Whereas, like I said, software as a service, you really just send a check, get a login, and you're up and running. It's literally that simple. So where do you fit into this? Good question, right? But these are some of the things you guys should be discussing with your internal teams. What are we doing? Where are we going? How are we addressing this? I'm not saying do it tomorrow, but I'm saying you should be talking about how you're going to handle this, because this problem is not going away. We're all seeing it, right? This remote thing is going to get more intense. And if you were here for the what's new this morning, much of our what's new features are all based on large assemblies and fancy this and fancy that, very intense data. So it ain't getting better. We have better find a new method other than VPN, because this is not going to cut it. Okay. So where does this all go? Right? That's how it all relates to us in our little world of engineering and data management for check-in and check-out and releasing. That's how it relates. But let's open our brain. All right. Why is this important to our companies as a whole, as an enterprise? And where are we going as a society, if you will? This is an example of things of how this technology is being used outside of our little world. But when you talk about data collection, analytics, and feedback loops, it doesn't get better. That little graphic is a simple graphic on how companies manage and maintain shipping companies and logistics, how they understand, fuel mileage for their trucks, for the FedEx cars, for UPS. It's in our airplanes, we're calculating that. This is real time fed back to the engineering team, or whoever can make sense of that kind of information and do something with it. So this is important, because this is the feedback loop that we're missing, right? When we design something, typically send it out the back door, right? Cut the cord and it goes and it works. We don't really think about it much after that. But if you can kind of see where we're going, what if I could get a feedback loop? What if I designed diesel tank pumps or something, and I wanted to understand the performance of that pump in real life, not just my theoretical calculations. How's it really performing in a caustic environment that's hot? Really neat to be able to get that information, right? And that's just always being populated. I can access it whenever I want. Show me, what that pump's doing in the from July to September, right? Because I just want that kind of data. We've always wanted that data, but to capture that, you had to think way ahead, right? You were always, oh, geez, I should have put sensors there to capture that. That's the concept, guys. It's going to capture the data whether we need it or not. So if you take a look at this feedback loop, where I see this all going is if we have feedback loops in manufacturing, how well did this part get cut? What's the rate? How's our tooling doing? Is the tooling wearing out because we got, this or that? Are we waiting on material? Because when we purchase this raw material, it's taking 3 extra days. Manufacturing feedback loops are going to help us. They'll make us better designers and engineers because we can change what we're doing to accommodate those inefficiencies in manufacturing. Same thing with shipping. What if we ship our stuff and that's where our parts are breaking, right? I know that's an issue for a lot of us. I used to do that with, putting accelerometers, and man, I couldn't believe what goes on, to my parts in the back of a truck. No wonders are breaking. What if we had feedback for that, right? What if we were tracking that and understanding the temperatures, the acceleration and G-forces and things that happen to our parts and systems just in getting to the customer? And then deploying it, right? After the fact, I want to understand if that gas pump is working as efficiently as it could. So I want feedback from my designs when they're in the field. I want vibration information so that I know, what kind of modes this thing is being exposed to. I want to understand fatigue information. How many times has this been, under tension and then released? These make us better engineers. If we get information, we can design better. And that is why I see this all coming back to us, right? All these feedback loops of what our design did in manufacturing, shipping, deployment. This is just what my little brain can come up with. But if you give that to the right people, like I said, you give this to the engineers and designers, we can change things to make it better in all these areas. So at the end of the day, although this is a little pie in the sky, right? Once these cloud things and VDI, all this stuff I just talked about, once that's implemented at an enterprise level, we as engineers and designers are going to get feedback and understanding that we've never seen before. And that's going to allow us to design better things with better warranties and make them cheaper and compete globally. So is this important? Yes, it's much more important than just me accessing my check-in, check-out data on PDM, right? This is a grand scheme of where we're going and how we're going to get better as engineers. So just a little food for thought. And like I said, the world's your oyster with this cloud. There's really no rules, It's like a hammer. There's no instructions. You use it whenever you want. So that's my presentation. Hopefully you got something out of that. That's not something that we talk about often, and I find that it helps me troubleshoot things. If you guys knew what bandwidth and latency did, and if you knew what throughput was, it could shave some time off these support calls. It could help us further this cause, and we could start collecting data to maybe put an ROI together to get you on 3DX or find that next move so that you're not caught flat-footed with this complex data that we're going to see in this remote environment. So again, thank you everybody for your time, both this morning and this afternoon. I'll be wrapping up my presentations with this one, and there's a lot more good stuff to come. And if any of this, spurs some questions, feel free to reach out to us or your account rep, and we'll definitely, be able to help you mitigate all these technologies. That's what we do.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for joining us for the final session of the day. In this session, we're going to be covering quite a bit of information on 3D printing and 3D scanning. This is going to be a general overview of all the technologies that the 3D printing division at TPM represents. And you can see the logos there on the screen on the things we're going to touch on. My name is Scott Gavozis. I lead the 3D printing division at TPM. I've been with TPM for 9 years now. Before joining the 3D printing division, I spent 6 years in our manufacturing division working with clients on SOLIDWORKS software solutions. I'm joined by one of our applications engineers, Max Ames. Max has been with TPM for almost 3 years now. He is a technical consultant for the 3D printing division, and he has spent time in consumer product design, performance motorsports, and defense, and he's been a SOLIDWORKS instructor and a user of additive in the industry. For those of you that don't know, over the summer, TPM acquired the Additive Manufacturing division of Duncan Parnell. And with this acquisition, we've added 3D systems printers, Artec scanners, and Geomagic software to our existing portfolio, which consisted of Markforged and HP 3D printers. So we believe that we now offer the strongest and broadest portfolio of products in the additive manufacturing space. And when we're talking additive manufacturing in industry, a common topic is that there are just so many options out there. It becomes overwhelming. So where do you start? That's where a partner like TPM comes in. So we're here to help you evaluate various solutions. We want to help you find what's best for your environment. What's going to have the biggest impact on how you're doing business today? There's no silver bullet when it comes to 3D printing. And it's because of the variety of applications out there that we bring so many different solutions to the market. So we're going to start off with the Artec scanners and Geomagic software, and then we'll get into the 3D printers.
All right, good afternoon, everybody. Like Scott mentioned, TPM represents many different solutions in the manufacturing space. One of those solutions is Artec 3D scanners. So what you see on the slide here is the full line of scanners that TPM represents from Artec. Starting from the left to the right, we have the Artec Micro, which specializes in ultra-high precision scans of small objects. Think about the size of a car headlight bulb. The Micro has seen tons of success in everything from jewelry to dental scans. Next up, we have the Space Spider. The Space Spider is a high-precision scanner that specializes in capturing small objects that range from about the size of your ear to the size of a shoebox. The Artec EVA specializes in mid-size objects such as furniture and the human body. The Leo is the flagship of all the Artec scanners, and not only can it handle smaller scans like the Space Spider, but can also handle much larger scans like a body panel of a car. It's also wireless, which is a great feature. All right, so let's dive a little deeper into the Artec Micro. The Micro is an automated desktop 3D scanner that can handle all of your high precision needs. It is capable of a scan accuracy of 10 microns, hence the name Artec Micro. Typical applications of the Micro include small electronic connectors, dental scans, jewelry scans, and other small mechanical parts such as watch gears and electronic components. One example of a use of an Artec Micro is to get a very detailed model of an electronic component in which you need to design an enclosure or nest for. The Artec Space Spider got its name quite literally from space. It is used in the International Space Station to reverse engineer parts on the space station on the fly. The Space Spider is capable of a scan accuracy of up to 50 microns and is typically used in reverse engineering of smaller components that range from a baseball size to about a shoebox size. The Space Spider is excellent at reverse engineering plastic injection molded parts and organic shapes. The Artec EVA is an industry favorite scanner which is known for its ultra-fast scans and reliability. The EVA touts a 100 micron accuracy rating, but makes up for its lesser precision in its portability and its capture speed. If you're reverse engineering components that are cast or net shaped components, the EVA may be all you need. The EVA has seen tremendous success in the furniture and casting industries. The Artec Leo is the flagship of all of the Artec 3D scanners. It is a portable handheld 3D scanner which has an accuracy rating of 100 micron. What makes the Leo the flagship of the Artec scanners is the onboard computer on the scanner itself and also its portability. If you have large equipment that needs to be scanned, the Leo is the scanner for you, as it has a long battery life that will allow you to keep on the move instead of being tethered to a computer. The Leo has seen tremendous success in scanning vehicle interiors and other large industrial equipment. The Artec Studio is the next step in the process after scanning. Once you utilize an Artec 3D scanner to capture whatever data you like, Your next step is to import the data into Architect Studio for processing. Architect Studio has an extremely intuitive interface and will allow you to quickly create CAD files and meshes of your scans to either be 3D printed or reverse engineered. Architect Studio also has an autopilot mode, which will walk you through the scan registration process all the way to the final mesh creation. This autopilot mode is an excellent way to train users to use the software and also to create precise models. TPM also represents the entire design suite of Geomagic software. From design to manufacturing to inspection, Geomagic for SOLIDWORKS, Geomagic DesignX, and Geomagic ControlX are here to help your scan process. If you're seeking additional processing power on top of Architect Studio, a software suite like Geomagic will most certainly have the additional capabilities needed to get the job done.
All right, so the Markforged 3D printing line. Markforged is bringing strength to 3D printing. The Digital Forge platform is powered by the hardware, software, and materials developed and produced by Markforged here in the United States. Markforged offers composite printers as well as metal printers. You can go ahead and go to the next slide, Max. The Markforged composite 3D printing is referred to as FFF technology. That stands for fused filament fabrication. If you're familiar with FDM, which is fused deposition modeling, it's the same thing. They just had to call it by a different name. The base material on these composite printers is called onyx. Onyx is a nylon 6 with chopped carbon fiber in it. On its own, it's 1.5 times stronger than an ABS plastic. But where Markforged really shines is they're able to use continuous fibers to further strengthen the parts. With continuous carbon fiber, you can achieve the strength of aluminum 6061 from a composite part. Markforged offers versions of Onyx material for various applications. This includes Onyx ESD for electrostatic applications, Onyx FR for flame-resistant applications. Markforged also recently released a carbon fiber FR, which combined with Onyx FR is great for example, aerospace applications. So how does it work? Markforged developed a software, it's called Eiger. It drives both the metal and the composite printers. And in the software, you can see exactly how much time it takes to print the part, how much material the cost is, and you can really dial into different areas of the part where you want to strengthen it. So here you can see the print time, material costs. This is a 2D slice of that part where we're adding continuous carbon fiber. You can control this layer by layer. And then there's a 3D view that shows 3 different layers where we've added carbon fiber, shows you the cost change. And that way you can minimize the cost of the part, but optimize the performance of the part. On the metal side, it's similar to the composite printers in that you're extruding a spool of material to print the part, but it's a metal powder encased in a wax material. The Markforged metal etch printing system it consists of 3 components. You've got a printer, a wash station, and a center oven. So how does it all work? The magic of Eiger. So once you've selected a material, the Eiger software is going to adjust your model 19 to 20% to prepare it for printing. Once the part is printed, it's considered to be in the green state. And from there, you would take it over to the wash station. The wash station is going to remove all the wax binding material from the part. You're going to dry the part at the wash station, and that is what prepares it for sintering. Once the part's dry, you put it in the center oven, and your part is going to shrink down to the size of the original CAD model. All of this is done in the Eiger software. There's no manual calculations required by the user. So this is just a quick visual to show you your STL file, changes in Eiger, and then you get a finished part out of the center oven 1-to-1 when you compare it to your CAD model.
So changing over a little bit, let's talk about some of the software that is included with Markforged. So Blacksmith is an add-on available for the X7 platform, which is part of the Industrial series, and it gives you an automated onboard laser inspection tool. As your part is sliced in Eiger will also create a laser scan toolpath to follow the contours of your part. In between layers, Eiger will pause and use the onboard laser measurement tool to create a measurement point cloud. An example of that point cloud is over on the bottom right. So you have your started CAD, your measured point cloud, and then you'll have a heat map afterwards to show the measurements. Once the print and scans are finished, Eiger will generate a print report that will compare the printed component back to the STL that was provided to Eiger. The measurements that Eiger will provide will compare the STL to the printed part. And the best part about Blacksmith is that Eiger will then use those measurements that were collected to improve the accuracy of the print the next time you need the same part. This is all in an effort to improve the accuracy and quality of your parts every time you print with Markforged. So let's talk about some applications here. Dayco is a manufacturer in the automotive industry that spends a lot of its time creating tooling and fixtures for its end-use parts. The traditional manufacturing process utilizes machined aluminum and took about 200 hours and about $3,500 in material to create the parts you see on the screen there. With the parts being designed for Markforged Onyx instead, they were able to create the same tooling in 100 hours, and they only used $1,500 in material. And on top of that, Dayco was able to reduce the inventory costs associated with the parts since they were 3D printed. Fisher Connector is a manufacturing company in Georgia that creates overmolded connectors for aerospace and defense. For a typical mold tool for an overmolded connector, it takes about 4 weeks of lead time and around $5,000 to create the tooling. By utilizing Markforged Onyx and high-strength, high-temp inlaid fiberglass, they were able to reduce the lead time to either 1 to 2 days and only $150 in tooling. For this specific case, Fisher actually uses this 3D printed mold tooling as their production mold tooling. And here are 3 more examples of how Markforged 3D printing can create savings and reduce costs. Starting from the left and moving to the right, we have a vice grip. The traditional time to manufacture this was about 3 weeks, and when it was printed and redesigned on Markforged, saw about a 66% savings in time. The traditional cost to manufacture this part was around $6,000, and on Markforged, it was about a 75% savings. And then you see this repeated in our other examples as well. So for the middle pieces here, we have some assembly fixtures. Printed on Markforged was a 93% time saving and a 99% cost savings. And on the far right there, you have some manufacturing aids. It was a 70% time savings and an 80% cost savings when switching over to Markforged. With Markforged, there is a massive potential for savings in both the time to produce parts and also the cost to manufacture. So I'm going to hand it back over to Scott here to talk about 3D systems.
All right, so 3D Systems has a wide range of technologies to cover. We're going to touch on multi-jet printing, the Figure 4 series, which is a DLP technology, stereolithography, and color jet printing. So first we'll start with the multi-jet printing, sometimes referred to as MJP. This is liquid being jetted out through print heads. The supports on this platform are a wax material that can be melted away during post-processing. And the multi-jet printing is known for high resolution and accuracy. You can access a wide range of materials on this platform, whether it be high temperature, rigid materials, elastomers, clear materials, or various colors.
So with all those different materials, the 2500 has a wide variety of applications, from functional testing to jigs and fixtures and electrical connectors. And with access to that variety of materials, the application scope is very broad, lots and lots of different applications.
The figure 4 is a DLP technology, stands for digital light projection, sometimes referred to as micro SLA. But this again is a pool of liquid. The parts are built a layer at a time. This allows you to print a lot of parts very quickly, and it's very affordable from a material cost standpoint. It's perfect for low volume production and same day prototyping. There are many material options on this platform as well. You can easily change out materials for a variety of applications, but on this platform, just remember it's fast and it's inexpensive parts.
So like what Scott was saying, the speed at which the figure 4 operates is really quite incredible. Depending on the mode you have selected, you can print up to 100 millimeters per hour in the vertical direction. One of the greatest assets of the figure 4 is its ability to adapt to different applications. The figure 4 has 15 different materials that it can print in, and performing a material swap is incredibly easy. Just empty the fluid back into its container that it came in and wash off the metal build platform, and you're ready to introduce another material in liquid form. And since it has all these different material types you can swap on the fly, the application portfolio is really quite diverse. You can do medical applications, jigs and fixtures, consumer parts, you name it.
For stereolithography, often referred to as SLA, this is a pool of liquid with a laser tracing out the geometry of your part. There's high levels of detail, very accurate parts off of this technology. It's good for prototyping, tooling, end-use parts, and it's capable of large build volumes. So anywhere from a 10 by 10 cube all the way up to 59 by 30 by 22. So very wide range of build volumes, very accurate parts.
So for the SLA printers, 3D Systems has over 10 different material options. And paired with those large build volumes, the number of applications possible is really, honestly, quite overwhelming. We see it everywhere from aerospace, automotive, electronics, packaging, consumer goods, you name it.
Next up is color jet printing, sometimes referred to as CJP. So this is a powder-based technology that's using a binding agent to create parts. Once the parts are printed, there is a post-processing step where you're essentially using like a liquid glue to cure the parts so you can actually handle them without breaking. But you can print in full color on this platform. These are not functional prototypes. These are great visual aids. Full color prototypes, if you think sales and marketing, architectural models, anatomical models, you can get photorealistic models off of this platform.
So applications of the ColorJet range from medical models and industrial design validation models to education tools and architectural design, just like Scott was saying. The low operating cost and high stability of the CJP process make it easy to continuously print high detail color parts without having to worry about going over your marketing budget. That's something you have to pay attention to. If you've ever wished that you could hold or see a full color print of something you were designing, ColorJet printers can definitely help you out with that. I'll turn it over to Scott here for HP printing.
All right, so HP is multi-jet fusion, short explanation MJF you might see when you're looking for it. But how does it work? This also is a powder bed technology. They're using agents and heat to build the parts. The main difference between the MJF and like the CJP we just mentioned is the HP printer is going to produce isotropic parts off of the printer. You can handle them. They're just like injection molded parts. You can go to the next slide, Max. So this system is designed for high volume, and it consists of 3 different pieces. On the left, you've got the printer. In the middle, there's a build unit. Most systems typically start with 2, but you can have upwards of 4 per system. And then there's the processing station on the right. All of the powder is handled at the processing station. There is an 80% recycled, 20% new mix of powder for each build. This allows them to drive down the cost of the parts. When you set up a job, it is going to take the powder necessary to complete the job and put it into the build unit. The build unit then goes into the printer. While you're printing parts, you actually have a second or third build unit where you can start to post-process jobs that have completed, or you can prep for a future job. So these are really designed to run 24/7. Next slide. This slide kind of gives you an idea of what a production environment would look like, where you have 4 printers all working with one processing station. There's an auto unpacking station. Really allows you to create a custom workflow to produce a high volume of parts.
The greatest part about multi-jet fusion printing is that it's not a linear process. Take, for example, this GoPro camera bracket that we have on the screen here. When I just have one component in that build, the print time is about 3 hours, 2 hours and 49 minutes. If I fill up the entire XY plane on the lower level of that build platform, I now have 28 parts, and you can see that the estimated build time is still 2 hours, 49 minutes, and 5 seconds. That is because with multi-jet fusion, it is sort of like a 2D process. For each layer that it performs, it prints the same amount of material. So if you have 16 parts that all occupy the same space on the bottom, it's going to print in the exact same time as if you had one. When the time goes up, however, if you build in the Z direction. So in this screen here, you can see that I now have 196 parts of the exact same thing, and my build time is now estimated to be just shy of 16 hours. So what's great about multi-jet fusion printing is that no matter what you print, the estimated time to complete the parts is always going to be, sorry, if you fill up the entire build, the estimated time is always going to be around that 16 hours. So SmartStream is the software that HP utilizes to create the builds we just saw and to send it to the printer themselves. So after you bring a file into SmartStream, the software analyzes the components and performs any repairs necessary to print the part. After all the components are checked and healed if necessary, you can use an automatic packing feature of SmartStream to fully utilize the entire build platform of the printer. In the GoPro example on the previous slide, we made over 100 components in a single build. On this slide, we have a number of different components that are all used within the same assembly. With multi-jet fusion, we have the luxury of utilizing the entire build platform to produce all the parts in the same build, regardless of what assembly they belong to. Imagine packing a full assembly, fasteners and all, into a build and starting the print on a Friday afternoon. And then after the weekend, you come back in and you have that full assembly waiting on you so you can test the fit and function of the parts. You can utilize the entire build volume, which is an amazing feature. So backtrack a little bit. After all your components are packed in there, all you have to do is to select the printer from the list of online printers and send it to the build. And that's it. That's as easy as it gets. So, as we all know, one of the greatest features of 3D printing is the design capabilities we unlock when we're able to print things. In industry, this process is called Design for Additive Manufacturing, or DFAM. The slide shown is an example of how DFAM can help improve your designs and unlock all the design capabilities of 3D printing. So if we start on the far left-hand side here, We have a traditional design of aluminum bracket, and this bracket is actually on the printer itself. The mass of this component is about 355 grams, machined out of aluminum. If we switch that over to 3D printing, we can reduce the mass down to 80 grams, just a simple block design. If we take it a step further and create a lightweight design, we can knock that mass down to 55 grams. And if we do a full redesign and keeping design for additive manufacturing in mind, we can create a fully optimized part which reduces the mass down to 24 grams total. So when we use 3D printing, and specifically with multi-jet fusion and the capabilities it has with the Z-axis, we can really unlock some really interesting designs that can save us a lot of money and a lot of time. So while we're talking about design for additive, we can also split parts. So if your parts are too large for a print, that's not a problem. Utilizing design for additive manufacturing and 3D printing design software, we can design in splits to your large parts so that they can be assembled after they're printed separately. So here's an example of just that. We have a large transmission cover, and it's too big for our print volume, so we split it up into 4 pieces here, and we utilize some pins and dowel holes to link them all together. Here's an example of what that looks like. This is just another example of design for additive manufacturing. So let's talk about some applications. One example of an industrial application is IAM's robotic arm grip. The arm grip on the right there was designed with DFAM in mind and greatly reduced the lead time of the component. It took 5 days to design and print this component versus 3 weeks if you were to traditionally manufacture the part. By lightweighting components, automation assembly lines can be sped up, resulting in an overall increase in efficiency and reduction in waste. A perfect example of multi-jet fusion technology revolutionizing your process is the Smile Direct Club. For those of you who don't know, Smile Direct Club creates a mold of your teeth that are affordable replacement to braces. They scan your teeth and create essentially what is a progressive mold for your teeth to correct the alignment. They utilize multi-jet fusion to create the mold negatives, which are then used to thermoform the guard over it to create the mold. Smile Direct operates 24/7 and prints up to 50,000 parts a day, which are totally unique. And they're able to do this with HP multi-jet fusion. Back to you, Scott.
So that concludes the subject matter for this session. I know we crammed quite a bit of information in 30 minutes. I hope it was informative for you and it piqued your interest in additive manufacturing. If you have any questions about anything you heard today, if you'd like sample parts, or if you'd like to discuss your application, please don't hesitate to reach out. For those of you in the Charlotte area, we're going to be having an open house in November. We are currently remodeling our lab, but all of the technology that we talked about today is going to be on display. It will be a very informal event just to give you an opportunity to see the equipment, get your hands on parts, and have time to discuss your applications with our industry experts. Thanks again for joining us, and have a great day.